Chapter 51, Underground Passage. Murakami and Batu had already brought people to ambush near the warehouse to wait for the arrival of Chaste and the others. They had witnessed the scene of Roger killing the few hand ninjas in the warehouse, but they did not stop Roger. Their mission was only to stop the people of Chaste. As for Roger, that was the mission of other members. When he sensed the entrance to the warehouse, Roger also felt the existence of Murakami and the others, but he did not mind them. As long as they did not come out to stop him, Roger could not be bothered with them. When Ninja of the Hand appeared, Chaste's people did not say a word. They directly took out their weapons and attacked Chaste's ninjas. They did not care about the disadvantage in numbers. Chaste's number of ninjas had always been inferior to the Hand, but their individual strength was far stronger than Ninja of the Hands. Even the ordinary members of Chaste had the strength to fight against more than 10 hand ninjas simultaneously. As for Old Man Stick, he could fight dozens of hand ninjas at the same time. However, Old Man Stick did not attack the Hand's ordinary ninja at this time. He was currently fighting with Murakami, who was holding a black katana. Like Old Man Stick, Daredevil did not attack the Hand's ordinary ninja. His opponent was one of Hand's 5 fingers Batu. At the same time that Murakami and Batu stopped Chaste, Madame Gao and Alexandra led people to ambush a few streets away. This place was quite a distance from the entrance to the warehouse, but this was the only way to go to the warehouse entrance. The reason why they were here was straightforward. They were waiting for the people on Kingpin's side. If Kingpin mobilized people to go to the warehouse, this was the most suitable place to ambush. To give Saonde enough time to open the seal and take Dragon's Bone away, Madame Gao, Murakami, and others took away most of the Hand's strength. As for the ones underground, they were the weaker hand ninjas. Moreover, according to their plan, the hand ninjas underground did not need to be too strong. Their existence only had 2 functions. One was to act as a porter to take Dragon's Bone away, and the other was to stop Roger. Although this seemed a bit inconceivable, they did have this plan. To complete this goal, they even took out a trump card they had never used before. At this time, Roger did not know this. Right now, he was quickly advancing through the underground passage. Although this underground passage that went to Dragon's Bone seal was temporarily excavated, it was not crowded. Instead, it was open and somewhat abnormal. According to common sense, as long as ordinary people could pass through this kind of underground passage, there was no need to spend extra energy to dig the passage even larger. However, the underground passage in front of Roger now completely exceeded this standard. It even reached the point where ordinary trucks could pass through. This was very abnormal, and abnormal meant an ambush. After moving through the underground passage for a time, Roger stopped and used the sensing technique again. It was not much different from what he had sensed before. The group of hand ninjas underground was still busy, and no other people were lying in ambush in the passage. The only difference was that hand ninjas was fighting with Chaste on the ground. Just as he was about to continue forward, another tremor came from Dragon's Bone seal. This time, the intensity of the vibration was not very strong, and it lasted for a short time. However, after the vibration ended, Roger felt unimaginably powerful energy. He was not unfamiliar with this type of energy. After all, he had greatly improved by relying on this energy these days. This was Dragon's Bone's energy. It was so huge that it was shocking. Even an ordinary person could clearly feel the existence of this energy. With Dragon's Bone as the center, everyone within a few kilometers felt the existence of this energy. Along with this energy, there was also a vast ancient aura that came from the primeval era. It was just a divine dragon that had died. Moreover, it was a divine dragon that had died countless years ago. By relying on its bones, it could emit such an astonishing aura. If it was a living divine dragon, then Roger felt that he needed to go to Kunlun in the future. At this time, Chaste and the others fighting on the ground also felt the enormous energy and astonishing aura emitted by Dragon's Bone. For a moment, both sides of the battle couldn't help but stop attacking. Feeling this tremendous amount of Dragon's Bone's energy, Old Man Stick expressed great desire. He stood straight in place and took a few deep breaths like a nervous person, as if doing this would absorb Dragon's Bone's energy into his body. As Old Man Stick took a deep breath nervously, his opponent, Murakami, did not waste the opportunity. He attacked him with lightning speed. The black katana in his hand was like a viper that caught its prey, directly attacking Old Man Stick's throat. Seeing that Murakami's black katana was about to hit Old Man Stick's throat, Old Man Stick, who had not moved at all, finally moved. No one knew how Old Man Stick had attacked. They only saw that Murakami had been ruthlessly hit in the chest by the long stick in Old Man Stick's hand. He was sent flying almost 10 meters away like a volleyball. Those who go against me die. After sending Murakami flying, Old Man Stick said silently. Although his voice was not loud, everyone present could feel the great killing intent he emitted. Daredevil was a few meters away from Old Man Stick. After hearing Old Man Stick's words, for the first time, he felt that he did not understand his master at all. At this time, Old Man Stick did not care about what the others thought. After he finished speaking, he held the long stick and walked forward unhurriedly. Ninja of the Hand obviously would not be frightened by Old Man Stick's killing intent. After seeing Old Man Stick walk towards Murakami, these ninjas did not hesitate and immediately attacked Old Man Stick. Facing these attacks from hand ninjas, Old Man Stick once again displayed his super strength as a grandmaster of combat. An ordinary-looking long stick in Old Man Stick's hand was like a divine weapon, displaying a terrifying lethality. In just 2 or 3 seconds, the hand ninjas attacking Old Man Stick had turned into many corpses lying on the ground. On the ground, Old Man Stick displayed his might. In the underground tunnel, Roger looked at hand ninjas, who was blocking his way with a puzzled expression. For some reason, these hand ninjas gathered at the exit of the tunnel. On their bodies, Roger felt a strange dark aura that he had once felt from Black Sky. The 77 hand ninjas stood in front of him just like that. On their bodies, Roger did not see any weapons. Chapter 52, If quality doesn't work, try quantity. Do you want to stop me with just these people? Aren't you looking down on me a little too much? After sensing the battle on the ground, Roger knew that the hands would arrange different plans for different enemies. The ones who intercepted Chased were a group of people, and the one who intercepted Kingpin was another group of people. So he was very sure that the 77 ninjas were specially prepared for him by the hand. However, there was one thing he did not understand. Where did the hand and guild keeper get their confidence from? They actually thought that these ninjas could stop him. Until now, the number of hand ninjas that died in his hands had already exceeded 200. Moreover, the average strength of those ninjas was stronger than the ninjas in front of him. Although he didn't know how to think about it, for the time being, he didn't intend to get tangled up in this problem. Fire release Great Fire Annihilation. Without any hesitation, Roger decisively used ninjutsu. A powerful flame shot out from his mouth, and like an angry fire dragon, it flew towards the hand ninjas. After flying for a short distance, this flame had already expanded to the point where it covered the entire passage. In almost the blink of an eye, these flames arrived in front of the hand and the ninja, completely devouring them. These hand ninjas did not make any evasive movements, and there was no space for them to dodge at all. The powerful flames enveloped them and quickly burned their bodies. The intense pain caused them to let out miserable cries involuntarily. One after another, pitiful cries resounded through the entire passageway. Looking at these hands and ninjas standing foolishly like puppets to withstand the flames' attacks, Roger sensed something was wrong. The flames, which were so loud and powerful, disappeared after 5 or 6 seconds. Along with the flames, the lives of the ninjas should have also been extinguished by then. However, these hands and the ninjas who had turned into corpses stood up in a few seconds. These hands and ninjas, supposed to be lying on the ground, stood up strangely like zombies in fantasy movies, and their eyes turned dark. On their severely burned bodies, black gas was constantly gushing out. These black gas were a little familiar. Looking at these black gas, Roger could not help but think of the black fog he had seen on Black Sky. However, the black gas that gushed out from Hand Ninja's body was much thinner than Black Sky's black fog, and it seemed that it was far less ominous than the black fog in the Black Sky's body. He took out a sword in his hand and threw it at one of Hand Ninja's. Roger wanted to see if these black gas could devour like the black fog. After imitating Bullseye's throwing skills, his sword throwing skills had been upgraded from a horrible sight to a superb talent. As long as he wanted to, he could even use the sword in his hand to hit the wings of a fly more than 10 meters away. The sword in his hand that he threw out drew a beautiful arc, then passed through the black gas and accurately hit the right eye of Hand Ninja's. Phew! The sword in his hand successfully hit the target, but it did not show the expected result. The eye was hit. According to common sense, it was enough to injure the enemy heavily. However, Hand Ninja's, struck in the right eye by the sword in his hand, seemed to be okay. Not only did he not change, he also did not even pay attention to the sword in his hand, allowing the blade to stay in his eyes. It seemed that this was not resurrection but just giving the dead some degree of movement ability. Roger quickly made a judgment and formulated the corresponding tactics. Although he did not know how the hand did it, according to the current situation, the hand was still well prepared. They are using the lives of the 77 ninjas in exchange for the time that he would not interfere. The hand did not expect the 77 ninjas to defeat Roger. What they wanted was to stall Roger. After Black Sky died in battle, the hand's 5 fingers were clear that normal combat strength couldn't stop Roger. Since that was the case, they might as well use some unconventional methods. The reason why Black Sky was so powerful was that Black Sky was a vessel possessed by a beast, so Black Sky could unleash strength that far surpassed ordinary people. The possession of the beast could significantly strengthen the power of a vessel, but there were not many people who were suitable to become a vessel. An unsuitable vessel would die in a short time after being possessed by the beast. Although the hand had no way of finding a large number of people suitable for vessels, they had come up with a method to temporarily borrow the power of a beast from the fact that the beast's possession would strengthen the power of the vessel. Since an unsuitable container would die quickly after being attached to by a beast, it was better to directly provide some corpses that had just died for the beast to possess. This way, there was no need to worry about the container's lifespan. In any case, they were already dead, so there was no need to care about the problem of lifespan. Through the resentment of the dead before their death and the suitable black magic, they could create a batch of temporary vessels that beasts could possess. Although the temporary vessels created through this method were far inferior to Black Sky, they held the absolute advantage in terms of quantity. Moreover, they were already the vessels of the dead and would not have any weaknesses of the living. As long as the power of the beasts did not disappear, as long as the bodies of the vessels had not completely collapsed, these temporary vessels could continue to fight as long as possible. If not for the lack of materials for black magic, there would be more than 77 hand ninjas standing in front of Roger now. These hand ninjas, who the beasts had possessed, swayed for a few seconds, and at the same time, they looked at Roger and let out a series of beast-like roars. Then, these hand ninjas rushed towards Roger like a pack of wolves hunting their prey. The one controlling these bodies now was not the original hand ninjas but the combat instinct of the beasts in their bodies. Some ran upright like humans, while others ran on all fours like wild beasts. But no matter what method they used, the speed they displayed far surpassed when they were alive. Roger finally understood why the hand had dug such a wide tunnel at this time. When digging the tunnel, the hand had already decided to use this trump card. The only difference was which enemy he would use it on. When hand ninjas ran to the last few meters, a 5-meter-long spear made of electricity appeared in his right hand. Chidori Sharp Spear. The few hand ninjas charging at the front were pierced like yakitori by Chidori Sharp Spear, and their bodies were cut in half. Chapter 53, Battle Royale. After instantly dealing with the few hand ninjas at the front, Roger waved his right hand to the right, and Chidori Sharp Spear cut off the bodies of several hand ninjas again. Although these hand ninjas obtained more substantial power because of the possession of the beast, their bodies were not strengthened to the same strength as Black Sky. Even the sword in their hands could successfully cause harm to them, let alone the stronger Chidori Sharp Spear. After cutting off the bodies of several hand ninjas on the right, someone finally rushed in front of Roger and pounced on him like a beast. Roger didn't dodge, he just ended Chidori Sharp Spear in his right hand, and then used another lightning release ninjutsu. Chidori Current. A light blue electric current visible to the naked eye instantly appeared and then ruthlessly hit those hand ninjas rushing towards him. Although the paralysis effect of the Chidori current didn't appear on these ninjas, the attack power of the current itself was enough to repel them. These ninjas who pounced toward Roger were sent flying like a rubber ball and heavily crashed into the remaining ninjas behind them, causing the entire scene to become highly chaotic. After dealing with these ninjas close to him, Chidori Sharp Spear once again floated up to Roger's right hand. After he dealt with a few more people, these hand ninjas, who had lost all reasoning, finally made a new move. They no longer swarmed toward Roger like a swarm of bees but began to try attacking Roger from different angles. "Are you bullying me because I'm alone?" These hordes of hand ninjas could be seen at a glance. They wanted to bully Roger because there was only one person. They would never attack from the same direction simultaneously, making it impossible for Roger to take care of the defense in all directions, thus creating a defense loophole that could be used. It had to be said that with the current IQ level of these ninjas, it was already very good to think of this tactic. However, they had underestimated the Roger in front of them. After sensing the thoughts of these ninjas, Roger did not disappoint them and used Shadow Clone technique. Bang! 4 identical him appeared on the left and right of the original body. This sudden change instantly broke the fantasies of these hand ninjas. Was it a pleasant surprise? After these 4 shadow clone techniques appeared, they used Chidori's sharp spear like their original bodies. Although these hand ninjas who beasts had possessed were much stronger than when they were alive, they had even surpassed the average level of Chaste's ninjas. However, in front of Roger, they were still too weak. They were so weak that they could take away a few with one attack. If the hand's 5 fingers knew this, they would not use this trump card on Roger. Old Man Stick brought more than 10 of Chaste's ninjas to find trouble with the hand, and Roger was facing 77 opponents stronger than Chaste's ninjas. In the hand's eyes, this was already an extremely high level of treatment. However, reality proved that this was far from enough. Under the simultaneous attacks of 5 Roger, these hand ninjas possessed by the beasts did not persist for too long before they were cleaned up and scattered everywhere in the passageway. Although these hand ninjas who had their bodies cut off still could move, they could not stand up at all without a complete body. They could only helplessly struggle on the ground like fish that had left the water. Roger ignored these hand ninjas who could still move and directly walked past them towards the final location of the seal. At the same time as Roger ended the battle on the ground also ended. Old Man Stick, who had displayed his might, fought against the crowd by himself. Not only did he beat back Murakami and Botu, who were in the hand's 5 fingers, but he also took the lives of dozens of hand ninjas. Under the lead of Old Man Stick, the other ninjas, Chaste, also seemed to have high spirits. They exploded with incredible combat strength, repelling or killing all of the hand ninjas in front of them. Murakami and Botu brought the remaining hand ninjas and retreated, while Old Man Stick and the others entered the underground passage and rushed towards the location of Dragon's Bone Seal. While Old Man Stick was fighting with Murakami and the others, Madame Gao and the others lying in ambush on the other side finally waited for Kingpin's subordinates. Because Kingpin was not there, and moreover, he had launched a sneak attack, Madame Gao and the others quickly occupied the advantage and killed Kingpin's subordinates. Unlike Chaste, Kingpin's subordinates were not ninjas. They held guns in their hands. But even so, in front of hand ninjas, who held martial weapons, these guys still could not gain any upper hands. Kingpin's subordinates and Ninja of the Hand fully displayed the gap between pros and amateurs. These gangsters could bully ordinary people, but in front of hand ninjas, who had undergone strict training and enjoyed killing, they were like a high school student team that had entered the NBA. They had fully experienced the difference in strength. When Ninja of the Hand beat these gangsters to the point where they couldn't raise their heads, Kingpin brought a team of 20 people to the warehouse where the underground passage was located. At this time, Kingpin was still wearing an expensive suit, and beside him was a group of fully armed and fierce mercenaries. This group of mercenaries was one of the trump cards that Kingpin had spent a lot of money to build. The members of the Hands all had real battlefield experience and had undergone professional special forces training. Before joining the mercenary team of Kingpin, they were all members of the top special forces team in various countries. Because of various reasons, they ended their military career ahead of time. They joined Kingpin's mercenary team when they were still at their peak. Even in the face of the famous SEAL assault team, they could still have an absolute advantage under the same number of people. Kingpin never expected that those gangsters could fight against Ninja of the Hand. Those guys were nothing more than bait he threw to the Hand. While Chaste was fighting with the Hand, Kingpin brought his men to the vicinity and witnessed the entire battle. However, he did not make a move. He only waited patiently, waiting for Chaste to open up a path without enemies for them. After Chaste entered the underground passage, Kingpin also led his men into the passage. At the same time, he planted several remote control bombs in the passage. However, Kingpin never expected that shortly after he entered the underground passage, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Black Widow would come to the warehouse and follow them. All the enemies that the Hand had expected had appeared at this time. The only difference was that the current situation differed from what they had planned. Saonde had just packed up the first batch of boxes that Dragon's Bone had taken out from the seal when he heard a familiar voice he did not want to hear. "Pack up Dragon's Bone and put it here. You don't have to worry about the rest." Chapter 54, Black Widow Natasha. If there was a voice in this world that Saonde didn't want to hear the most this time, then the one ranked first was definitely Roger. He didn't know if he had done something wrong in his previous life, but he found that his luck had been getting worse and worse ever since he met Roger. For the first time, he found out about the existence of Roger, and more than 100 of his subordinates died. The first time he saw Roger, his strongest subordinate, Black Sky, died, and Erica was sent out. Although the first commission was successful, it needed to be paid heavily, and he paid for 2 boxes of Dragon's Bone. Then another visit for commission, he was robbed of 3 boxes of dragon's bone. He even used his secret trump card to prevent him from interfering with this plan. In the end, he still appeared. Trying to calm down, Saonde turned to look at Roger, trying to control his tone as much as possible, and said silently, "We found this place, and we opened the seal. I can agree if you want to take several parts of the dragon's bone. But you can't take it all as soon as you open your mouth. You can't be so unreasonable even if you are powerful." If not for the fact that he couldn't beat Roger, Saonde wouldn't even want to say a word, let alone speak in this tone. "First of all, I have to correct you. Whether I can take dragon's bone away or not, you don't need to agree. Secondly, I am unreasonable. How about it? Lastly, I will give you a warm reminder. Without dragon's bone, you will only die in the future. But if you dare to stop me, you will die now." Roger ignored Saonde's anger and said casually. Regardless of whether Saonde was willing or not or what kind of movement Chaste and Kingpin could make, Saonde did not care. He would not hand over any of the dragon's bone here. At this time, hand ninjas, who were digging and transporting dragon's bone, also discovered the existence of Roger and looked over. As long as Saonde gave the order, they would attack immediately. After hearing Roger's 3 words, the anger in Saonde's heart reached its highest point. Even so, he forcefully controlled his plans to make a move. Roger's last sentence was correct. Without dragon's bone, at most, he would not be able to extend his life in the future. But if he made a move, he did not need to consider the future. He would die here today. Although he had lived for several hundred years, he still treasured his life. If not for this, they would not have risked betraying Kunlun back then. Is there no room for discussion? What do you think? If he was not the only one present, but the hand had 5 fingers, Saonde might have tried to resist. But in this situation, he did not even have the capacity to resist. "All right. I admit defeat." After saying that, Saonde turned around and left. At the same time, he motioned to the ninjas to put down dragon's bone. "You can leave. They have to stay. After packing up dragon's bone, they can leave." Dragon's bone had not been completely mined yet, and Roger was not willing to dig by himself. "You guys stay here and continue digging until you finish." Saonde suppressed his anger and left this place alone. As for where he went and where he left from, Roger was not interested. The hand ninjas who were left behind watched as Saonde left and continued carrying out the task in his hands. It must be said that the hand had done an excellent job training his subordinates. This was what it meant to be a subordinate. He would do whatever he said without resistance. If all the livestock under him had this kind of obedience, those capitalists would wake up with a smile when they slept. Under hand ninjas' efforts, more and more dragon's bone was dug out and soon piled up into a small mountain. Looking at these dragon's bone, Roger imagined his chakra volume slowly rising. However, this beautiful image of his was quickly interrupted. All of dragon's bone here belongs to Chaste. Although Old Man Stick could not see, he could feel the energy released by dragon's bone, the energy that made him restless. Seeing the arrival of Chaste, hand ninjas immediately pulled out his weapon and prepared to fight at any time. "Don't stop. Continue to dig," Roger said in a dissatisfied tone. After hesitating for a few seconds, hand ninjas finally withdrew his weapon and continued digging and packing. After hearing Roger's words, Old Man Stick's expression immediately became ugly. Although he had only interacted with Roger once, he deeply remembered Roger's voice. He remembered this guy who used to treat him as a sparring partner. Just as Old Man Stick wanted to speak, Kingpin's voice came from afar. "What a big tone! Without my permission, you Chaste won't be able to take dragon's bone with you." Although Kingpin only brought 20 people with him, if they moved, these ninjas of Chaste would not be his match. Not long after Kingpin arrived, a figure full of temptation appeared at the passage's exit. Black Widow Natasha. After seeing her figure, Roger frowned slightly. Why was this woman here? Was there no one else in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s New York branch? Roger was no stranger to Natasha. They had met before. S.H.I.E.L.D. had sent special forces to capture him 3 times in a row. After failing 3 times, S.H.I.E.L.D. did not give up immediately. Instead, they started a relatively gentle plan. The one who executed the plan at that time was the Black Widow, Natasha. If he hadn't known about the existence of the Black Widow, Natasha, he would have almost overturned the car that time. However, he still won in the end. After that plan, S.H.I.E.L.D. ultimately gave up on the plan to capture him. Natasha also saw Roger at the first moment. Just like Roger, she also frowned slightly. She initially thought the earthquake this time was only caused by the Hand and Kingpin. But now, it is evident that Roger was also one of them. After seeing Roger, she finally understood why there were so many tattered corpses at the end of the underground passage. Although Natasha was alone, after seeing the shield symbol on her uniform, Kingpin put away the contempt in his heart and regarded her as the second biggest threat. As for the most significant threat was Roger, who was not far away. After arriving here, Natasha did not say anything. She just came to a relatively empty area and quietly watched everyone present. Not long after, Saonde, who had left, returned here again, and Murakami and his apprentice returned with him. Chapter 55, You're all dead in 10 seconds. In addition to Saonde, Murakami, and Botu, nearly 50 hand ninjas returned with them. Moreover, the passage they returned to was not the one that Roger and the others entered but the path on the other side of the underground space. After returning to the underground space that sealed Dragon's Bone, Saonde did not fear Roger as much as before but looked at him provocatively. Not long after Saonde and the others came here, Madame Gao and Alexandra also rushed over with more than 100 hand ninjas from the other 2 fingers of the hand. At this point, all 5 of Hand's fingers appeared. In addition to hand ninjas, Chaste, Kingpin, and the others who had stayed here to dig up Dragon's Bone, nearly 400 people had gathered in this underground space that was almost the size of 2 football fields. Of course, most of them were the Hand's people. Just Ninja of the Hand alone had almost 350 people. For the sake of Dragon's Bone this time, the Hand almost went all out. Old Man Stick and Kingpin did not expect that the Hand would pay so much attention to this operation, even willing to bet on the fate of the entire organization. The number of people held an absolute advantage. Even if the Hand did not use his 5 fingers, the Hand's ninjas could also fight against Chaste and Kingpin simultaneously. As for Roger, the Hand took action with its 5 fingers personally. Saonde knew very well that he could not fight against Roger with his strength alone. Therefore, when facing Roger's coercion, he could only choose to endure it time and time again. But now, he would no longer have any tolerance. Since we are no match for you in a one-on-one fight, 5 of us will go simultaneously. Saonde and the others were able to escape from the pursuit of Kunlun successfully because they were not familiar with everything about Kunlun but because the 5 of them were extremely good at fighting together. When the 5 of them fought together, the chi in their bodies would produce a magical connection, causing their strength to be increased by a terrifying amount, releasing an unimaginable and shocking combat power. If not for such a magical method, they would have died in the pursuit of Kunlun hundreds of years ago, and the Hand would not have appeared in this world. All along, the outside world thought Black Sky was the Hand's peak combat strength. However, only Saonde and the others knew that when the 5 of them were together, they were the Hand's true peak combat strength. Under the signal of Saonde and the others, the 350-plus hand ninjas immediately attacked Chaste, Kingpin, and the others. Even the Black Widow, Natasha, who was alone, was surrounded by more than 10 hand ninjas. Gunshots, shouts, and sounds of swords clashing rang out continuously, causing the initially quiet underground space to become extremely noisy. At this time, Roger was still standing as if he had not seen anything. He did not even pay attention to the 5 people approaching him. Why do you have to do these useless things? Why do you have these unrealistic fantasies? Can't you properly gauge your own strength? Roger lowered his head and muttered to himself. Then, he took a deep breath and calmed his somewhat agitated mood. When he raised his head again, his eyes turned into Sharingan, and a cold, deadly aura emerged from his body. Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wishes. When he finished speaking, 32 Shadow Clone Technique, who looked exactly like him, appeared out of thin air beside him. He usually only created 4 Shadow Clone Techniques because the cooperation of 4 Shadow Clone Techniques was enough to resolve the battle. The limit of his number of Shadow Clone Technique is not just 4. Roger can make 32 Shadow Clones. It immediately attracted a lot of attention, and the sounds of fighting in the surroundings also dropped significantly. Under their gaze, these 32 Shadow Clone Techniques ran in different directions. In the process of marching, these Shadow Clone Technique did not attack any one of them as if they were just passing by. When the 32 Shadow Clone Technique arrived at different locations in the underground space, Roger took out 2 Flying Thunder God Technique branches and held them in his hands. I will kill all of you in 10 seconds. Roger's voice was not loud, but everyone present heard his words. Killing nearly 400 people in 10 seconds. Although this sentence came from his mouth, most of the people present did not think that he could do it. The people here now were not street hooligans and lowly ragtag. All of them had extremely rich combat experience and the strength to kill ordinary people easily. Not to mention killing nearly 400 people in 10 seconds, even if it was 400 chickens, it was impossible to kill them all in 10 seconds. Although most people thought that Roger was boasting, the Black Widow Natasha did not think so. If he said so, it meant that he could definitely do it. Therefore, after hearing Roger's words, Natasha did not hesitate and immediately ran toward the underground passage. Not long after Natasha ran, Roger began his countdown. 1. As soon as his voice fell, his figure disappeared. At the same time, dozens of people in different positions were instantly cut in the throat. Bright red blood burst from their wounds, rendering a sad and cruel scene. 2. 3. Roger's voice sounded from different places every second. Whenever the voice sounded, dozens of people's throats or hearts would be pierced. In just 3 seconds, more than 100 people died. Since you don't believe me, I will prove it to you with facts, Roger murmurs to himself. 3 seconds, more than 100 corpses. Those who suspected Roger before had no doubts at this time and ran in the direction of the underground passage. They wouldn't have the chance to run if he didn't run. That madman would kill everyone here in 10 seconds. The enemies who were initially fighting each other fiercely now turned into brothers who ran together. Roger didn't stop killing when these people ran into the underground passage. 4. 5. 6. 7. Another 4 seconds passed, and more than 100 people died at the hands of Roger. Until now, they still did not know how Roger did it. He killed dozens of people in 1 second, and they were all killed by Kunal. Even if he could teleport, it would be too late. 8. 9. Another 2 seconds passed. At this time, only 10 people were still alive in the underground space apart from Roger himself. Black Widow Natasha, Kingpin, his 2 mercenaries, Old Man Stick, Daredevil Matt, Chaste's unknown ninja, the Hands Murakami, Alexandra and Sawande. Chapter 56, Underground Massacre. There were nearly 400 people. 9 seconds later, only 10 people survived. This efficiency and terrifying killing efficiency shocked all the remaining people. Only now did they finally understand why Roger would confidently say those words. Within 10 seconds, I will kill all of you. This was not an unrealistic fantasy. This was just a warning. Natasha had started to retreat and had already entered the underground passage. As for Kingpin, Old Man Stick, and the others were only a small distance away from the underground passage. But none knew if they could enter the passage alive at the last moment. Unlike Kingpin, Old Man Stick, and the others who were desperately going to the underground passage, Sawande, Murakami and others showed no signs of retreat. Instead, they silently stayed where they were and watched the scene in front of them in disbelief. The hand was finished. Even if they could leave this place alive, the hand could not avoid the fate of being destroyed. For this operation, they dispatched almost all the people they could mobilize. All the ninjas in the organization were dead, and only 3 people were left within the 5 fingers. In this case, even if they left alive, they would only delay the time of their death a little. If he had known that the ending would be like this, he should not have thought about the dragon's bone from the beginning. Sawande closed his eyes, resigned to his fate, and waited for the call of death. Roger did not let him down. When Sawande, Murakami and the others were ready to welcome death, he said the last time. 10. Roger's voice that was like the death march, sounded again. When he heard Roger's voice, Sawande felt cold across his throat. There were also Murakami and Alexandra who had the same feeling. Even Old Man Stick and the others, who were only a little bit away from the underground passage, suffered a similar experience. However, they felt not the pain of the neck being slashed but the pain of the heart being pierced. In the end, only 3 people who fled the underground passage still alive. Because Natasha was the first to react, she was the first to enter the passage. Although Daredevil Matt was a step slower, with his super strong perception and extraordinary speed, he also stepped into the underground passage at the last moment. And the last one to enter the underground passage was Kingpin. The one who entered the passage alive was originally a mercenary under Kingpin. But at the last moment, Kingpin used this lucky mercenary as his shield and used the life of this mercenary to exchange for the chance to leave alive. When Natasha and the other two entered the underground passage, Roger stopped his slaughter and put away Flying Thunder God technique, which was already covered in blood. In order to deal with nearly 400 enemies in 10 seconds, he used a tactic he had already prepared but never used in battle. Flying Thunder God technique killing formation. 32 Shadow Clone technique meant 32 Flying Thunder God technique coordinates. While the main body was teleporting and killing through the coordinates of the Flying Thunder God technique on the Shadow Clone technique's body, Shadow Clone technique was also using the same method to teleport and attack. Every second was equivalent to 33 Roger launching attacks at the same time. The transfer between the main body and 32 Shadow Clone technique also provided more possibilities for the subsequent transfer. In the end, this terrifying killing efficiency was created. Only Roger and his Shadow Clone technique stood in the vast underground space. All the enemies had died, but he did not remove Shadow Clone technique. Instead, he gave them a new order. Pack up and transport the dragon's bone. Although Ninja of the Hand had already dug and packed a part of dragon's bone, many dragon's bones still had not been dug out. He did not intend to let go of a single one of dragon's bone here. When Roger's Shadow Clone technique began to dig and send the packed dragon's bone back home one by one, Daredevil Matt, who was in the underground passage, stayed in the passage with a complicated expression on his face. Matt knew that Roger had nothing to do with the good people in the traditional sense, but he did not expect that Roger was more apathetic to life than he imagined. Nearly 400 people were killed just like that. And after the killing, there was no emotional fluctuation at all. It was as if what had just died in his hands was not a living human but an ant. Although Matt felt a little sorry for the death of the others, it was only sympathy. But Old Man Stick's death made him unable to calm down for a long time. Although he did not agree with some of Old Man Stick's methods, no matter what, Old Man Stick was his master, the person who taught him how to fight. His own master was killed just like that. As a disciple, it would be abnormal if he did not react. Matt, who was in a complicated mood, finally left the underground passage. As for whether he would take revenge on Roger in the future, only he knew. Unlike Matt, who was in a complicated mood, although Kingpin also lost a powerful mercenary team, he was in an excellent mood at the moment. Although Kingpin did not even get a single piece of dragon's bone, Roger's killing had helped him deal with somewhat troublesome enemies. The Hand's 5 fingers were dead, and most of the Hand ninjas were dead. Even if there were a few scattered ninjas outside, they would not be able to cause any harm. This also meant that he could easily occupy everything that the Hand had left behind. After losing a team of mercenaries with decent strength and obtaining all the assets and territories that the Hand had left behind, no matter how he calculated it, he had made a profit. At the same time, Kingpin silently decided that he would never provoke Roger in the future unless it was absolutely necessary. Natasha was the last to leave. She originally planned to go over and say a few words to Roger, but in the end, she gave up on this plan and began to return to S.H.I.E.L.D.'s New York branch. After giving orders to Shadow Clone Technique, Roger returned home and asked Shadow Clone Technique to bring Dragon's Bone back to Organic Energy Purification and Separation Instrument. After a night of hard work, Roger harvested a whole bucket of purified green liquid. The second separator, who had worked for an entire night with a high load, released a broken sound in front of him after purifying the last portion of Dragon's Bone. Looking at the giant bucket of green liquid in front of him, Roger first sighed, then took out a cup and filled it. After spending more than 3 days, he finally finished all the green liquid that Dragon's Bone had purified. At the same time, he silently made a decision. In the future, he absolutely would not drink green things. "I hate green," he shouted as he smashed the glass in his hand to the floor. Chapter 57, Commission from S.H.I.E.L.D. After drinking all the green liquid that Dragon's Bone had purified underground, Roger could feel the growth of his chakra volume. Although the increase in the later stages was getting less and less, under the enhancement of a large amount of green liquid, his chakra volume still greatly improved. In order to confirm what level his chakra volume had reached, he opened his attribute panel. Host, Roger. Job, Ninja. Talent, Sealing Technique, 7 Attribute Chakra. Bloodline Limit, Sharingan. Ninjutsu, Substitution, Body Flickering Technique, Temporary Paralysis Technique, Shadow Clone Technique, Flying Thunder God Technique, Sensing Technique, Raise Nan, Self-Taught. Lightning Release, Chidori, Chidori Sharp Spear, Chidori Current. Fire Release, Great Fire Annihilation. Water Release, Water Gun Technique. Yin Release, Bringer of Darkness Technique. Chakra volume, level 99. Number of available ninja coins, 44. When he first looked at the first card, he thought that the system was wrong, so he recognized it again. Chakra volume, level 99. The status panel clearly showed the number 99. Roger clearly remembered that the last time he saw it, chakra volume was only level 12. However, after drinking a whole bucket of green liquid purified by dragon's bone, his chakra volume directly rose from 12 cards to 99 cards. Looking at this terrifying increase, several crazy ideas suddenly emerged in his mind. Going to Kunlun, he had to think of a way to go to Kunlun. If there were 2 or 3 complete divine dragons, dragon's bone, then the chakra in his body might directly become level infinite. Level infinite, although this was just a joke. But just thinking about it, it would still make people excited. To a certain extent, infinite chakra could be equal to being powerful. After all, the ninja who could get whatever he wanted with a clap of his hands was doing this. Thinking of this, he became even more excited. After calming down his somewhat excited heart, he used Flying Thunder God technique to go to the office, intending to see if there was any commission worth accepting recently. Although the hands matter had ended, he didn't intend to rest for a while. After so much chakra, his desire for specific ninjutsu also advanced. So he decided to work hard to accept more tasks to have more ninja coins. Although he was eager to accept more commissions, after reading the content of the commissions arranged by Erica, he couldn't help frowning. There were indeed commissions, and there were also quite a lot of them, and the remuneration provided by the client was also very generous. But the content of the commissions. Were there no ordinary people who had recently been commissioned? He had seen many strange commissions before, but today's commissions refreshed his knowledge. A famous rich woman in New York City had left behind a sufficiently generous commission through a private butler. Roger vaguely remembered that this rich woman did not seem very old. When the rich woman's husband passed away last year, an exciting headline appeared in the newspaper, saying that this was the third husband's funeral of this rich woman, and the man was less than 40 years old. Was there a problem with the reputation that had recently been spread? How could this kind of request appear? This was simply an insult to a young, strong, and great young man like him. Perhaps many men did not mind this kind of insult, but he minded it very much because he was a person who liked to take the initiative to control the rhythm. Just as he was thinking about it, a woman with a voluptuous figure and a sexy body came to the office. "Hello, my name is Natasha. I am a friend of Roger. Is he in the office now?" Natasha asked Erica calmly, but her heart was full of doubts. When did Roger find such a beautiful and powerful female assistant? Although Erica was now wearing a common business suit, Natasha could tell at a glance that Erica was a warrior with rich combat experience. Erica did not answer Natasha directly. Instead, she went straight to the door of Roger's office and knocked gently before opening the door and walking in. Before opening the door, Erica did not know whether Roger was there or not, so she had to come here to confirm. "A woman came just now. She said she was your friend. She said her name was Natasha." Just like Natasha could tell at a glance that Erica was not an ordinary assistant, Erica immediately knew that Natasha was different. "Let her in." He was not surprised that Natasha would come to him at this time. Because even if not for Natasha, S.H.I.E.L.D. would send someone else to meet him. Among S.H.I.E.L.D., only 2 people had a good relationship with Roger. One was Coulson, who had a higher hairline than ordinary people, and the other was the Black Widow Natasha, sitting in front of him without saying a word. "Just say it directly. Why are you coming here for me?" If it were other men, they would have been at a loss if Natasha stared at them without saying a word. But Roger would not. After all, he had already experienced these things a long time ago. "It's been so long since we last met. And this is the first thing you said to me." Natasha did not directly answer Roger's question. Instead, she said in a voice that could easily make a man lose his mind. "All right, let it be. If something bad happens, you will regret it." Looking at Roger's unchanged expression, Natasha finally returned to her normal appearance and said calmly, "The bureau asked me to ask you if they can buy some dragon's bone from you. Our researchers are very interested in these dragon's bone. If you want, we can buy some from you at a high price." After listening to Natasha, Roger glanced at her and said quietly, "It seems that you guys accepted the last inheritance of the hand. I thought Kingpin would be the one to eat the hand's inheritance. We only took a small part of it. The rest is with Kingpin." The hand's assets and territory were meaningless in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s eyes. The only thing worthy of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s concern was the little bit of dragon's bone that the hand had left. This is indeed very consistent with your style. You can go back and tell your one-eyed director that I will not hand over dragon's bone, no matter the transaction or other methods. If he wants it, he can dig it himself. Maybe there are other dragon's bone buried in some other underground place. Although he did not even have a single piece of dragon's bone in his hand, he still had to pretend to have it. I will pass on your word to them. Let's leave the matter of dragon's bone for now. We have a commission. Are you interested? After that, Natasha took a USB out of her pocket and handed it to Roger. Take a look at the contents inside. I guarantee that you will be interested. Chapter 58, Bruce Banner. After receiving the USB from Natasha, Roger opened the document on his laptop. Not many documents were on the USB, but Roger looked at them seriously. After the young man looked at the document's contents, he closed the laptop screen and asked Natasha seriously, "Tell me what you want to entrust me with. I am indeed very interested in this thing." The content of the commission is straightforward. Find the person shown on the USB and bring him back. Whether dead or alive, it is all okay. The last time Carlson came to the commission, you refused to take it without even looking at it. The reward this time is $20 million, 10 times that of the last time. Moreover, if you need it, we can give you a share of the things we have developed. At this time, Natasha did not show her previous seductive posture and answered honestly. I don't care about the research, but I want $100 million. If you agree, I can consider accepting this commission. No problem. Natasha did not even think about Roger's request to raise the reward and agreed directly. In any case, there was no difference for S.H.I.E.L.D., whether the reward was $20 million or $100 million. He had too much money to care about the monetary reward. Write the contents of the commission and the reward on it, and then I will give you a final reply. Roger took out a commission scroll that had never been used before from the drawer and placed it in front of Natasha. Natasha proficiently opened the scroll and wrote down the content and reward of the commission. At the same time, she signed her name. The moment Natasha finished writing her name, Roger opened the commission page of the system and took a look. Mission content: give Banner to S.H.I.E.L.D. Dead or alive? Mission status: incomplete. Mission reward: 100 ninja coins. Seeing the commission reward given by the system, Roger sighed in his heart. The reward for this commission was really high. It directly refreshed the records, raising the maximum recorded reward to 3 digits. I accept the commission. But I want all the information you know now. No problem, we will send it over later. After completing the commission, Natasha did not stay too long in the office and left directly. The main reason was that Roger did not want to talk too much with her. Natasha was just like her code name, and if you were not careful, you would fall into the trap she had prepared. When Natasha left, Roger turned on the computer screen and again read the information on the USB. More than a year ago, the talented Dr. Bruce Banner accepted the military's invitation and studied a new technology for the military with his girlfriend, Dr. Ross. Dr. Banner thought he was researching to resist radiation, but in reality, this was a test to increase the strength of a living being. Simply put, it was an experiment to create a super soldier. But Dr. Banner did not know this, and he was full of confidence in his research, so he conducted a human experiment on himself. As a result, a green monster was born. Roger did not find any significant difference in comparing the birth process of the Hulk in his memory and the information recorded by S.H.I.E.L.D. The information that S.H.I.E.L.D. gave this time was complete. It seemed that there was still some sincerity. In Roger's memory, Dr. Banner finally found in Brazil, but he did not know where the specific place was. From the current information, S.H.I.E.L.D. did not know the specific location of Dr. Banner. Otherwise, they did not need to go to Roger's door and hand the commission to him. Of course, it could not be ruled out that S.H.I.E.L.D. had already found Dr. Bernard. Maybe they could not bring him back. However, no matter what the situation was, he did not mind handing Dr. Banner to S.H.I.E.L.D. A whole 100 ninja coins. To him, this temptation was even more significant than $1 billion. The reward of the commission given by the system was indeed very tempting, but this also meant that, in the system's judgment, this was a challenging task. Not long after Natasha left, S.H.I.E.L.D's courier sent a document over. After putting down the document, the courier left the office at full speed, as if this was a battlefield where he could lose his life at any time. If Roger was present, he might be able to recognize that the courier who sent the document this time was the one who sent the bomb last time. After taking the document from Erica, Roger began to read it seriously. Just as he guessed, not only did S.H.I.E.L.D. not know the specific whereabouts of Dr. Bernard, even the information in their hands was second-hand. At the end of the document, S.H.I.E.L.D. wrote a warm note. Information about Dr. Bruce Banner came from General Ross, the United States Army Air Force. The relationship between S.H.I.E.L.D. and the United States Army had never been good. S.H.I.E.L.D. did not like the barbaric work of the United States Army, and the United States Army also hated S.H.I.E.L.D.'s misbehavior. If General Ross knew that his confidential documents had appeared in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s database, he did not know if he would not be able to resist visiting Nick Fury personally. Several months ago, General Ross had lost track of Dr. Banner. Now, he was searching the world for Dr. Banner. Just as Roger was considering whether he should go to Brazil now, he received a transfer message on his phone. The transfer amount was precisely $100 million. This efficiency is not bad. I like it. After glancing at the information on the phone screen, Roger returned to the document. He was currently considering a problem: would he die on the spot if he took a punch from the Hulk? After careful calculations, he concluded that his survival chance was not very good. If the angry Hulk hit him, then the possibility of him dying on the spot was only 50%. The possibility of dying on the spot was 50, and the chance of dying in pain after persisting for some time was 40. Only 10 of the case was where he was seriously injured or lightly injured. General Blonsky casually gets kicked by the Hulk and has his whole body fractured. Although this guy recovered later, in the end, he became the Abomination. However, Roger could roughly infer what he might have felt in his body. Although his current body had been strengthened by chakra, it was estimated to be similar to the Brown, who had a strengthening potion. From this perspective, the difficulty of this commission was indeed very high. However, if one looked at it from another perspective, the difficulty of the commission might not be that high. Only by being hit would one be injured, and if one were not hit, one would not be harmed. It seemed very difficult to fight without injuries. But this was not impossible for Roger, who had Flying Thunder God technique. Chapter 59, Vibranium's Gear. In addition to fighting without injuries, Roger had another backup plan. It was just that this plan would cause extremely massive side effects, so he did not take this as the first choice. Using yin release against Hulk, he would wait until he was exhausted before coming out to subdue him. In his anger, Hulk himself did not have much rationality, which meant that when he used yin release, the effect would be unexpectedly good. The only problem he had to consider was how much damage the irrational Hulk would cause. If it were in the wilderness, Roger wouldn't mind doing this. But if he did this in a city with a dense population, it was equivalent to detonating a sizable nuclear bomb in the town. Unless the anti-Hulk armor is used to confront the Hulk head-on, exhausting his strength and preventing him from expanding the damage should also be a priority. Or, like some crazy titan, he used a set of overbearing military boxing to hit Hulk in the face directly. After thinking about it, Roger still decided to use the method he was better at to deal with Hulk. Hulk's strength, endurance, and defense were all top-notch, but his speed was not very fast, and he could not fly. Although Roger could not fly now, it was not impossible for him to fly. He would never forget that he had steel armor worth hundreds of millions in Tony's mansion. He wondered what it felt like to use ninjutsu on Mark III. Would he become a science and technology ninja? Just as Roger was lost in his thoughts, the office door was pushed open, and someone who looked significantly different from an average person walked in. "Hello, how can I help you?" As an assistant, Erica stood up and asked about the visitor. However, Roger's voice came from the office before the visitor could speak. "Let him in." This visitor was none other than Frank the Punisher, who he had sent to Wakanda half a month ago. After entering Roger's office, the Punisher put the huge bag on the ground and said, "This is vibranium, I brought it back." After that, the Punisher opened the huge bag that was big enough to fit a curled-up adult. What was in the bag was a pile of black ore that emitted a dark blue light. Even those who did not know vibranium would know that these ores were not ordinary after seeing these strange ores. "I did not find heart-shaped herb. After I snatched these vibranium, I was targeted by the Black Panther, King of Wakanda. His combat ability is excellent, and the combat suit on his body also has an outstanding defensive ability. He led a team to hunt me down. I had no choice but to give up on finding heart-shaped herb and leave Wakanda with these vibranium ores." The Punisher briefly recounted his encounter with Wakanda. "All right, thank you for your hard work. You should rest for a while first. I will look for you when I need you. The Punisher nodded silently and left Roger's office. After the Punisher left, Roger took out his phone from the drawer and dialed a number. Since he had obtained the vibranium ore, he naturally had to find someone who could turn the ore into a weapon. And he just happened to know such a person. After some simple communication, Roger happily agreed with the person on the other side of the line. After hanging up the phone, he picked up the bag, at least 30 to 40 kilograms on the ground, and disappeared. In the blink of an eye, he came to a garage full of luxury cars and placed the bag on a metal workbench. I hope these things are really as good as you say. After saying that, Tony directly came to the side of the workbench and opened the bag. Looking at the black ore that emits a dark blue light in front of him, Tony's face revealed a curious expression that he had not seen for a long time. These things are called vibranium. After the high temperature melts, they will be reforged and become indestructible. Of course, this is only the simplest way to use it. Vibranium's molecular structure is exceptional. This allows it to have an unparalleled defensive ability. Moreover, its molecules are relatively static, so they can hardly conduct heat and kinetic energy. However, it can absorb heat, energy, and kinetic energy. After fusing with other metals, vibranium's hardness will improve further. But I don't know exactly what kind of metal it is and how it is fused. Although this thing does not conduct heat and kinetic energy, as far as I know, through some technique, it can release the energy stored in the surface in one go. In this regard, you are an expert, so I believe you have a way to figure out how to release the energy inside. After listening to Roger's explanation, Tony frowned slightly and said, "The things you said reminded me of a shield my father had accidentally created. I believe you can surpass your father and create a better one." After speaking, Roger picked up a tablet and quickly drew on it. Not long after, 3 different shapes with specific data appeared on the tablet's screen. I want 10 of this trident-style kunai, and I have only one requirement: they are hard enough. This blade is a straight katana, I want one, and it's the kind that can release stored energy. As for this fan also needs to be able to store and release energy. The fan Roger was talking about was drawn according to the appearance of the Uchiha fan, and even the 6 megatamas on the top were also drawn in detail by him. Kunai and katana, try to make them as sharp as possible for me. Of course, also ensure that hard enough. As for the fan, as long as it is hard enough and can release energy, it will be fine. Kuwu was drawn according to Flying Thunder God technique Kuwu's appearance, and the straight katana was drawn according to Suzuki and Sword of Kusanagi. Why do you want such a big fan? And this shape is not suitable for fighting, right? Tony was not surprised that Roger wanted the katana. However, he could not understand why Roger wanted a gourd-shaped fan almost as tall as a person. No matter from which angle one looked at it, this fan did not match the standard of battle equipment. It would hinder the user even if it were used as a shield. You won't understand, you just need to believe me. If not for the fact that ninja coins weren't enough, Roger wouldn't have needed Tony to create an Uchiha fan. Although the original Uchiha fan was made of wood, it wasn't ordinary wood but a part of the divine tree. Not to mention that the original Uchiha fan could also absorb the opponent's attack and convert it into wind attribute chakra to rebound back. Even the tailed beast attack could rebound back. Chapter 60, Uninvited Guest from Afar. After explaining his needs, Roger used Flying Thunder God technique and returned to the office. With Tony's ability, it was only a matter of time before he could figure out how to use vibranium. After all, he was a top genius that could even create a space-time locator in a short time. Vibranium's method of forging be a problem for others, but it definitely would not become a problem for Tony. The only thing Roger needed to care about right now was how long it would take for Tony to get the weapons he needed. If Tony could give these weapons to him before Hulk appeared, then he wouldn't mind competing with Hulk at close range. Although vibranium's version of the Uchiha fan couldn't be the same as the original one, no matter what, vibranium still made it, so it wouldn't be a problem for him to block Hulk's fist. After returning to the office, Roger turned on his computer and carefully browsed through the information on his girlfriend, Dr. Ross. No one knew where Dr. Banner was now, even a professional organization like S.H.I.E.L.D. did not know. Logically speaking, a physicist couldn't hide so cleanly. However, not only did Dr. Banner do it, he did it well. Whether it was S.H.I.E.L.D. or the military, they could only wait for Dr. Banner to make a mistake and expose his whereabouts. In searching for Banner, S.H.I.E.L.D. and the military were clear that conventional methods had no meaning. Therefore, Roger planned unconventional methods, starting with Banner's girlfriend, Betty. S.H.I.E.L.D. and the military also had planned on this side. They spent a lot of time monitoring Betty's every move, hoping to get news of Banner from her. But the result was, with no surprise, nothing. Although he had not been able to track down Banner from Betty, S.H.I.E.L.D. still sent her information over. Betty Ross, a PhD in cell biology, was currently teaching at Culver University in Virginia. Betty was not only a colleague and girlfriend of Banner, but also the daughter of General Ross. Because of General Ross's existence, Betty did not suffer any unreasonable treatment after an accident with Banner. The Culver University where Betty was located was 600 to 700 kilometers away from New York, and Roger did not leave any Flying Thunder God's formula in Virginia. To save his time, and mainly to be lazy, he planned to use a more convenient way to get there. Bang! With a thought, a shadow clone technique who looked like him appeared in front of him. Go to Culver University in Virginia and leave Flying Thunder God's formula in the school. After you do this, you can voluntarily despawn. Rather than wasting his time, it would be better to waste Shadow Clone Technique's time. Anyway, Shadow Clone Technique would not have any objections to this. After receiving the order, Shadow Clone Technique did not hesitate and immediately jumped out of the office window. As for how Shadow Clone Technique would go over, Roger did not mind. Driving was fine. Taking a plane was fine, as long as he could go to Culver. However, not long after his Shadow Clone Technique left, he received the message that Shadow Clone Technique had disappeared. Through Shadow Clone Technique's feedback, he saw a man wearing a Black Panther suit and two black women holding Vibranium's spear. The Punisher didn't get rid of Wakanda's pursuer? Roger initially thought that the Punisher had escaped from Wakanda's pursuit so he could return to New York smoothly. But from the current situation, the Punisher did not completely get rid of Wakanda's pursuit. He was only a little ahead of them. Roger took Vibranium's ore to Tony's mansion. However, he only stayed in Tony's mansion for less than 10 minutes. In less than 10 minutes, Wakanda's men arrived near his office and ambushed one of his men, Shadow Clone Technique. Judging from the decisiveness of Black Panther and the two black female warriors, they had determined the relationship between the Punisher and Roger, which was why they acted so decisively. The Punisher didn't carry out his mission very well this time. After silently cursing in his heart, Roger went to the window and jumped out. Since others had come to visit him, he wouldn't be able to go if he didn't go out to greet them. Your Majesty, this guy is not a human. After killing Roger through a sneak attack, a black female warrior turned around and said to the Black Panther behind her. The current Black Panther was not the one who would participate in the civil war of the new Federation in the future, but his father, T'Chaka. Although he was already in his 50s, because of heart-shaped herb, he still retained the strength of his middle-aged age, possessing extraordinary strength and speed. Because of this, he led the royal guards to pursue the Punisher and chased him from Wakanda to New York. The reason why the Punisher was able to return to New York under his pursuit smoothly was also the result of his deliberate indulgence. It was tough to kill the Punisher, who possessed the body of Edo Tensei. Still, for Wakanda, which had super high technology, it was not impossible to catch him before the Punisher returned to New York. He allowed the Punisher to return to New York smoothly and handed over Vibranium's ore to Roger because he wanted to use the Punisher and Roger to find Ulysses Klaue. The latter had once stolen a large amount of Vibranium from Wakanda. However, the T'Chaka would never have thought that this matter had nothing to do with Ulysses Klaue. Moreover, the Vibranium that the Punisher had snatched away was immediately sent to Tony's garage by Roger. Wakanda's king personally brought the royal guards to the door. This is really my honor. Just as T'Chaka was about to remove the helmet from the Black Panther's armor, Roger's voice rang out not far behind him. Without hesitation, the current Black Panther T'Chaka immediately turned around and prepared to attack anytime. Because of the Black Panther armor, he did not consider defense at all. In his memory, the Black Panther battle armor represented indestructibility. The Black Panther battle uniform made by Vibranium was indeed worthy of the word indestructible, but this did not mean that with the Black Panther battle uniform on his body, he would not be harmed in any way. The moment he turned around, he saw a pair of blood-red eyes. He had never seen a couple of eyes but instinctively sensed danger. Then, under the watchful eyes of the two black female warriors, Roger came to the stunned T'Chaka and struck the raised Nan to T'Chaka. Chapter 61, Chaka King of Wakanda. Roger had always wanted to know what kind of experience it was for raised Nan to hit Vibranium. He had initially thought that he would have to wait until Tony made Vibranium's version of the Uchiha fan before he would know the answer. But he did not expect an even more suitable target that had come to his doorstep. With the Black Panther armor and the body that heart-shaped herb had strengthened, Black Panther T'Chaka was the second most suitable target for testing. As for the most suitable target, of course, it was the next Black Panther, T'Challa. Although heart-shaped herb had strengthened him, the current T'Chaka was in his 50s and was not in his peak state. However, Roger did not mind this. It was already good to have a test target that came to his doorstep on his initiative. What more could he ask for? Although the royal female warriors next to T'Chaka wanted to stop Roger, they couldn't keep up with Roger's speed. They could only watch as Roger hit Ray's Nan on T'Chaka. When Ray's Nan touched the Black Panther armor, Roger could immediately notice the difference between vibranium and ordinary metal. The energy was absorbed. Although chakra was unique energy that Roger only owned, chakra was also a type of energy. After Ray's Nan, an energy ball made of chakra came into contact with the Black Panther armor, his power was inevitably absorbed. However, this did not mean that Ray's Nan had no way to hurt T'Chaka, who was in the Black Panther armor. Vibranium could absorb energy, but the amount of energy vibranium could absorb had a limit. As long as it surpassed the absorption efficiency of vibranium, then vibranium could only rely on its sturdiness to resist the damage. In less than a second, Roger calculated the consumption of chakra. After that, he increased the output of the chakra. After instantly increasing the output of chakra, the absorption of chakra in the Black Panther armor suddenly became insignificant, and Rasengan's power began to go through the Black Panther armor. At this time, T'Chaka was still under the control of the Sharingan Yin release. He stood still like a puppet and ultimately suffered the damage of Ray's Nan. With the protection of the Black Panther armor, although T'Chaka would not be twisted and torn apart by Ray's Nan like ordinary people, the impact force of Rasengan's body still sent him flying, tumbling for dozens of meters. The intense pain allowed T'Chaka to get rid of the influence of the Sharingan Yin release. To be precise, it was Roger who stopped his Yin release. At this time, he did not have time to make any movements. His whole body heavily slammed into the outer wall of a house, blasting a big hole in the house's exterior wall. Although he sent T'Chaka flying, Roger was evident that this time, Ray's Nan would not cause too much harm to T'Chaka. Ray's Nan was just a pure chakra ball, and he wouldn't directly attack the human cells like Wind Release, Rasen Shuriken. With the protection of the Black Panther armor, Rasengan's distortion and impact force were mainly dissolved. As for the remaining small part, T'Chaka could entirely rely on his own body to resist it. Just as Roger predicted, T'Chaka walked out of the hole in the wall in a few seconds. Apart from the Black Panther battle armor on his body that was covered with some dust, T'Chaka did not look any different from before. However, this was only from the perspective of a bystander. T'Chaka himself knew very well that if not for the Black Panther battle armor made by vibranium protecting him, Ray's Nan just now would have been enough to injure him heavily. Even if the battle armor dissolved most of the damage, the remaining small portion of power almost made him unable to get up. T'Chaka felt as if a speeding locomotive had just hit him. Moreover, this locomotive was spinning as it hit him. This guy could break the defense of the Black Panther armor. Although there was no gap in the Black Panther battle armor defense, this thought still emerged in T'Chaka's mind. T'Chaka stayed in place with extreme vigilance, not daring to approach Roger rashly, afraid he would be hit by Ray's Nan again. Until now, T'Chaka still felt a little dizzy, and sometimes, there was a burst of stabbing pain in his body. T'Chaka did not launch an attack, but his two royal warrior women were not so concerned about Roger. After seeing T'Chaka walk out of the hole in the wall, the two royal female warriors raised the spear in their hands and stabbed Roger fiercely. Just as the spear in the hands of the two royal female warriors was about to stab into Roger's body, they simultaneously felt the cold touch on their necks. Then, there was intense pain and endless darkness. At this time, Roger was still standing in the same place. After sensing the attacks of the two royal female warriors, he took out two swords in his hands and threw them at them very casually. After Bullseye's selfless teaching, his current hand sword throwing technique had reached an incredible level. He could have the sword in his hand shoot accurately at the enemy from any angle any way he wanted to. After quickly dealing with these two royal female warriors, Roger did not even have an interest in looking at their corpses. He directly used body flickering technique to disappear from the spot. When Roger disappeared, T'Chaka raised his alert, preparing to defend against Roger's attack. However, his vigilance was meaningless. When he saw Roger again, Roger had already appeared in front of him. Moreover, there was a Ray's Nan several times larger than the previous one in his right hand. Boom! Before he could do anything to defend himself, T'Chaka was once again sent flying by Ray's Nan. This time, he smashed through the wall. He also passed through the entire house and flew out from the other side. He was sent flying again by Ray's Nan, which was several times bigger. Even with the Black Panther armor's protection, T'Chaka was seriously injured. He involuntarily spat a mouthful of fresh blood into the armor helmet. Vibranium was very sturdy, but it did not mean it could not be destroyed. Since the future of a certain Mad Titan can use a double-edged sword to cut through the shield of Captain America, today's version of Roger could use Ray's Nan to break the Black Panther armor on T'Chaka. Roger is not the Mad Titan, but the Black Panther armor in T'Chaka is not the shield in the hands of Captain America either. In terms of defense, the shield in the hands of Captain America was much stronger than the Black Panther armor on T'Chaka. After being hit by Ray's Nan twice in a row, T'Chaka had no intention of staying. Before he could send a signal, a strange-looking fighter jet took the initiative to fly over and fired a few shots at Roger simultaneously. Chapter 62, Peaceful Solution. This kind of warplane, which is entirely different from its normal form in appearance and interior, is known to come from a strange country like Wakanda, which is both advanced and backward. When this strange fighter jet had just fired, Roger had already shifted his position through body flickering technique, easily avoiding the fighter jet's energy cannon attack. When Roger dodged the fighter jet attack, T'Chaka, who had fallen to the ground, jumped up and then ran towards the fighter jet. Want to leave? It's not that easy. Although Wakanda's strange fighter jet had locked onto his whereabouts, Roger did not take the fighter jet seriously at all. From locking on to firing, he had enough time to shift his position. After dodging the energy shells from Wakanda's fighter jet again, Roger split out one of the shadow clone techniques to pin down Wakanda's fighter jet. At the same time, he used body flickering technique to get behind T'Chaka. Without giving T'Chaka any time to react, Roger hit the third Ray's Nan on T'Chaka's body. Boom! T'Chaka, who was wearing the Black Panther battle uniform, was once again sent flying. After several houses were smashed, he finally stopped. When T'Chaka was sent flying, the fighter pilot realized that there were two identical Roger on the ground. Before he could react, Roger's shadow clone technique launched an attack at the fighter jet. Water release water gun technique. The strange liquid bullet hit the fighter jet at a speed that surpassed the speed of sound, leaving a finger-sized hole in the outer shell of the fighter jet. The outer shell of the fighter jet was not made of vibranium. After discovering this, Roger's shadow clone technique did not hesitate and used water gun technique again. However, this time, the liquid bullet did not cause any damage to the fighter. Although the outer shell of the fighter jet was not entirely made of vibranium, in those critical parts that could cause severe damage, Wakanda's engineer wisely used vibranium. After all, if the machine goes down, then it's just a bunch of scrap metal. After being attacked twice by shadow clone technique, the pilot finally reacted and pressed the firing button again. Boom! The energy shell hit shadow clone technique's position, but it did not pose any threat to shadow clone. Just as the muzzle of the aircraft began to shine, shadow clone technique left the place through body flickering technique. The energy shell only hit the ground. Although shadow clone technique had forced Roger to retreat, the pilot helplessly discovered that he had fallen into a situation where he could not advance or retreat. If he wanted to take the king off the ground, the fighter jet had to maintain a low altitude. Otherwise, it would be impossible for T'Chaka to enter the fighter jet. However, he would be attacked if he maintained a low altitude too long. What was even more troublesome was that from the second the fighter jet was removed from the stealth mode, the signal of the fighter jet had appeared on the radar of the U.S. military and SHIELD. The U.S. military and SHIELD could not ignore the situation. If nothing went wrong, the U.S. military and SHIELD's fighter jet were already on their way out. The longer the time dragged on, the worse the situation would become. Helplessly, the fighter jet pilot had to choose a relatively extreme plan. Activate all weapons and forcibly clear the area. Although this would pose a threat to the lives of the surrounding civilians, the fighter jet pilot could not think too much about it. The surrounding civilians were just a bunch of unfamiliar foreigners to him, while T'Chaka was his king. There was nothing wrong with sacrificing these people's lives to save T'Chaka. Even if he would be severely punished afterward, he did not care. Although T'Chaka, who was sent flying, did not know what this fighter jet pilot was thinking, he immediately reacted after seeing the weapons on the fighter jet enter a state of activation. After seeing this scene, T'Chaka did not hesitate at all. He immediately activated the communication device on his combat suit and ordered the pilot inside the fighter jet. "Stop the attack! Stop the attack immediately!" After saying that, T'Chaka stood up from the ground and took off the Black Panther helmet. He said to Roger, who was not far away, "This time, it was a misunderstanding. I hope that we can solve this problem in peace." After saying that, T'Chaka silently wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Things had developed to this point and had deviated entirely from his plan. According to his original plan, they should be able to capture Roger easily. Then, they would obtain information about Ulysses Claw from Roger. Ultimately, they would bring the lead back to Wakanda with vibranium, which had been snatched away. However, he never imagined that Roger would possess strength far exceeding his imagination. In the beginning, he thought that Shadow Clone Technique was Roger, so he attacked Shadow Clone Technique together with the two royal female warriors. Although their sneak attack had succeeded, Shadow Clone Technique, who had been attacked, also turned into a cloud of smoke and disappeared. As they were puzzled, Roger rushed over and took 3 hits from Ray's Nan. After being attacked by Ray's Nan 3 times in a row, he roughly guessed Roger's plan. Roger used him for some tests. It might be to test the power of the light blue energy ball, or it might be to test the defensibility of the Black Panther armor. But no matter the test, it meant that Roger had no killing intent towards him. Just as he thought of this, he saw all the weapons on the machine enter a state of activation. Thus, he had no choice but to take off his helmet and give in to avoid the situation from developing in a worse direction. After glancing at T'Chaka, Roger removed Shadow Clone Technique, then said, "Tell me, how do you plan to resolve this misunderstanding peacefully? Can we talk somewhere else?" T'Chaka pointed to the surrounding onlookers. Although the battle between them had caused a lot of noise, what attracted the onlookers were not the battle between them but the strange-looking Wakanda fighter jet in the air. 2 people fighting is not as attractive as UFOs. Moreover, these people couldn't see the battle between Roger and T'Chaka. They could only hear the loud bang, see the wall broken, and realizes that one of the person fell. "Drive the fighter jet away from here. Without my order, you are absolutely not allowed to remove the stealth mode." After giving the order to the fighter jet pilot, T'Chaka and Roger returned to the office. "All right, now we can talk about your so-called peaceful solution." Leaning back on the chair, Roger said casually, "To express my apology, I will give you compensation. The specific content of the compensation is up to you. As long as I can do it, I will satisfy you." Just as Roger had expected, T'Chaka's so-called peaceful solution was to spend money to solve the disaster. As the king of a country, T'Chaka had enough confidence to say such words. However, he obviously underestimated Roger. "Really? Then I want a portion of heart-shaped herb." Chapter 63, Gunbei Uchiwa. T'Chaka was already prepared for Roger to demand an outrageous price, but after hearing Roger's words, he realized that he had still underestimated Roger. Heart-shaped herb was a magical plant that only the king or successor of Wakanda had the qualifications to consume. To Wakanda, not only was heart-shaped herb ensuring the existence of the king's power, but he was also a symbol of the king's legitimacy. "Heart-shaped herb will not be handed to you. You can ask for other compensation." T'Chaka tried his best to control his emotions. He kept warning himself in his heart that he must not be angry. He must keep his mind at peace. It seems that Wakanda's king does not have any credibility. He just made a promise, but now he pulls it back. Wakanda can't do it. Where is their pride to pull back on such a promise? Before making the request, Roger knew that T'Chaka would never give heart-shaped herb to him. The reason why he deliberately made such a request was nothing more than to suppress T'Chaka's arrogance. So what if you are Wakanda's king? Even if you have the extremely rare vibranium, so what? In front of me, you better put down that so-called arrogance. You. To be humiliated in front of his face and by someone far younger than him was undoubtedly something even more difficult for T'Chaka to accept than defeat. But even so, T'Chaka still tried hard to control his emotions and prevent himself from doing something he shouldn't do in a moment of impulse. Before making a promise, it's best to confirm if you can do it. Otherwise, the more attractive your promise, the more humiliated you will be when you can't do it. Roger ignored T'Chaka, whose face was getting darker and darker. In his opinion, T'Chaka's face had always been like this. "I wasn't thorough enough. I wonder if you can change your request now." In any case, he had already lost face to this extent, so T'Chaka didn't care if he didn't have any dignity anymore. He quietly asked in a soft tone. Now, this is the attitude to resolve a misunderstanding peacefully. Seeing you are so sincere, I won't make things difficult for you. Give me 10 tons of vibranium and the information that you have developed. I will pretend that nothing happened this time. After hearing Roger's request, T'Chaka finally breathed a sigh of relief. Vibranium is as abundant as grass in Wakanda and was much cheaper than the heart-shaped herb. As for vibranium's information, although it could be considered precious, it was only a piece of data compared to heart-shaped herb. No problem, I will send someone to send vibranium over within a week. After reaching a consensus, T'Chaka left the office. Like an actual Black Panther, he disappeared from the roof of the office. It took the Punisher more than half a month to snatch away several dozen of vibranium from Wakanda. In the end, it only took Roger less than 10 minutes to get 10 tons of vibranium from T'Chaka, the king of Wakanda. Life was sometimes such a surprise. After T'Chaka left, Roger called out Shadow Clone Technique again and arranged the same task. After doing all this, he used Flying Thunder God Technique to return home, opened the PS4, and played a game that he would soon clear. 4 or 5 hours later, he looked at the red and annoying character on the screen and sighed helplessly. He could have cleared the game smoothly and defeated the last boss named Sword Sage. But at that time, he received feedback from Shadow Clone Technique. In that split second of distraction, he saw the word danger that he had read countless times. Putting down the gamepad in his hand, Roger used Flying Thunder God Technique to return to the office and was ready to take the Kunao to Culver University. Just as he was about to leave, the phone he had placed on the table suddenly rang. The caller ID showed that it was a call from Tony. It couldn't have been made so quickly, right? It had only been 5 hours since he handed Vibranium the ore over to Tony. You need to come over immediately, right now. After speaking, Tony hung up the phone. In 3 seconds, Roger heard strange sounds from the call's background. Without hesitation, he immediately used Flying Thunder God Technique and teleported to Tony's garage. Just as his figure left the garage, a bolt of lightning as thick as an arm struck him. Boom! The light blue lightning bolt instantly passed through his position and struck the wall behind him, leaving a massive hole in the wall. Before he could figure out what was going on, the second and third lightning bolts arrived in front of him. These 2 lightning bolts are fast, but Flying Thunder God Technique was even faster. Roger's figure disappeared again, and the 2 lightning bolts missed again, leaving 2 massive holes in the garage wall. After returning to the garage through Flying Thunder God Technique, he was much more careful. He avoided the lightning that scattered everywhere and came to Tony's side. What exactly did you do? Right now, what was crazily releasing lightning was none other than the vibranium version of the Uchiha fan that Roger had asked Tony to create. I fused the vibranium you brought with me with the ancient spear I bought at Norway's auction. I added some other metals, and it became what it is now. When he heard the word Norway, Roger instinctively felt something was wrong. From an average human's perspective, Norway was an ordinary Nordic country. But if you consider other unnatural factors, Norway is a country with a rich background. It is not very special. It is just that the Asgardians prefer Norway. To some extent, the Nordic legends that originated from Norway can be equivalent to the biographies of the Asgardians. Are you kidding me? Even if Tony added some strange things inside, it was impossible to lead to this current situation. That vibranium version of the Uchiha fan was now crazily releasing lightning. This was definitely not a normal phenomenon after several substances were fused together. To test if this thing can store and release energy, as you said, I used arc reactor to charge it. After saying that, Tony pointed at a work table not far away. On the work table, more than 20 small arc reactor could no longer glow. Although Tony's expression is hidden behind Mark III, Roger is sure that this guy was hiding something. However, this was not the main point. The main issue now was how to deal with the vibranium fan that was currently releasing electricity. Chapter 64, The Fan and the Sword. According to Tony, vibranium's fan could release electricity because Tony used arc reactor to charge the fan. Although this so-called one time was a bit too much, no matter what, the energy that could be stored inside the fan was limited. This also meant that even if they did nothing, the energy in the fan would disappear entirely because of time. However, Roger and Tony could not confirm how long it would take. The only thing they could confirm now was that if they allowed the fan to release electricity, it would not be long before Tony's mansion would become a pile of ruins. After quickly thinking for a few seconds, Roger promptly made a decision. He will throw the fan into the sea. Roger immediately called out 4 shadow clones and arranged different tasks for them. One of them, shadow clone technique, immediately went to the sea on the outside, while the other 3 tried to approach and take the fan away. If one of the 3 shadow clones could touch the fan, then the shadow clones could directly take the fan away through Flying Thunder God technique. The idea was beautiful, but the reality was cruel. The 3 shadow clone technique responsible for taking the fan had just walked a few steps when they were hit by the incoming lightning and turned into smoke. After the 3 shadow clone technique disappeared, Roger used shadow clone technique once again and summoned 8 shadow clones. This time, the result was slightly better than before. The best shadow clone technique was only 3 meters away from the fan. After repeated attempts, a shadow clone technique who used body flickering technique and Chidori current finally arrived in front of the fan and placed his right hand on it. Just as this shadow clone technique's right hand touched the group fan, the intense electric current released by the group fan pierced his body, turning him into a cloud of smoke. Before it turned into smoke, this shadow clone used its last moment to leave Flying Thunder God's formula behind on the fan. Flying Thunder God's formula was left on the fan, and the next thing was much more straightforward. The fan that released electricity was successfully taken away by shadow clone technique, and Tony's garage finally regained its calmness. Just as Tony breathed a sigh of relief, an explosion like a nuclear bomb exploded in the sea several kilometers away. Boom! Although the explosion location was in the sea several kilometers away, Tony and Roger in the garage still felt the earthquake. The vibration disappeared after a few seconds, and everything returned to normal. If there is a next test, I hope you can start with the smallest test. There was no problem with the energy absorption level of the test fan. However, using the 25 arc reactor at the beginning was very problematic. This was not something Tony would do. 10 minutes later, a drenched shadow clone technique brought the fan back to the garage. Roger sent out 20 shadow clone technique to find this fan that fell into the sea as soon as possible because he thinks most likely the fan had its position changed because of the explosion. After handing over the fan that was still releasing a weak electric current to Roger, the drenched shadow clone technique turned into a cloud of smoke and disappeared. Only now did Tony open his mouth to ask Roger, "This ability of yours is very special. After I lost to you last time, I carefully reviewed everything, including all the data I collected at that time. But all the information you collected showed that you were no different from a puppet that would turn into smoke and disappear. How did you do this?" Roger was not surprised that Tony would ask this question. After all, he had used shadow clone technique repeatedly in front of Tony. "You can treat this as my superpower. As for how I did it, let's leave it at that now. The explanation will be very long and complicated." After saying this, Roger stopped and did not continue. Seeing that Roger did not intend to continue, Tony did not continue to ask. He changed the topic and said, "Although this thing is different from what I planned, according to the performance just now, this thing should meet your requirements." After speaking, Tony took out a suitcase and put it in front of Roger. Inside the suitcase were 10 Flying Thunder God technique kunai made by vibranium and a 1 meter long straight katana. "With this, I have finished what you asked me to do." Roger did not look at the 10 kunai but picked up the straight katana. From the outside, this katana looked precisely the same as the Kusanagi sword of Uchiha Sasuke. Under Tony's gaze, a light blue chakra appeared on Roger's right hand. A few seconds later, a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Although he didn't know how Tony did it, the katana in his hand met his requirements. It could even be said that it gave him a big surprise. After vibranium fused with the antique spear Tony had bought from Norway, he possessed excellent energy absorption and release capabilities. His chakra could flow through every inch of the katana without being affected, and it could also significantly increase the sharpness of the katana. This katana seemed to be tailor-made for his chakra volume. "I am delighted with this. When do you want me to fulfill my promise?" After hearing Roger's words, Tony did not even think and directly said, "Right now, the location is still outside." Right now, he was still wearing Mark III, and after he finished speaking, he took the lead and flew out, waiting for Roger to arrive. To let Tony forge a weapon, Roger agreed to his request. It is to fight him again. This was Tony's condition. Roger was pleased to accept Tony's request. When Tony, wearing Mark III, left the garage, Roger's figure disappeared into the garage. A minute later, he returned to the garage with Tony, who was drenched. "Keep up the good work. I believe you can use better battle suits next time." After comforting Tony, Roger brought the fan, which was still releasing weak electric currents, the briefcase containing the katana and vibranium kunai, then teleport to the office. After the last failure, Tony adjusted the armor of the battlesuit, allowing the battlesuit to have a stronger resistance to penetration. But what he did not expect was that Roger's tactic this time was completely different from the last time. It was still the same mysterious appearance. Tony only saw Roger hit a light blue ball on the armor's chest, and then there was no more. The armor lost its power and fell into the sea. If Roger had not pulled him out later, he would probably be in eternal sleep at the bottom of the sea. After returning to the office, Roger put the box and the fan on the table, and a question popped into his mind. What kind of names should he use for the fan and the katana? Chapter 65, Perfect Bait for the Hulk. If a sword looked like Kusanagi sword, the sharpness was like Kusanagi sword, and it could also be used like Kusanagi sword. Then there was no problem in calling this sword Kusanagi sword. Roger quickly picked the name for the vibranium katana. Since vibranium's katana was called Kusanagi sword, then the name of vibranium's fan was obvious. The Uchiha's fan was called Gunbei Uchiwa, which symbolized the proficiency of the Uchiha clan in using fire releases ninjutsu. This fact also inspires the Uchiha clan's clan badge. Compared to fire release, Roger was more skilled in lightning release. At this time, he only had one fire release, which was the Great Fire Annihilation he had exchanged from the system. As for lightning release, he currently had 3 ninjutsu, Chidori, Chidori Sharp Spear, and Chidori Current. Moreover, after Tony created the sword of Kusanagi for him, he would soon be able to grasp the other lightning release ninjutsu, Chidori Katana. Therefore, he named the fan Gunbei Uchiwa, symbolizing the Uchiha clan. The name commemorated the other classic anime he had seen before his transmigration. As expected, the Gunbei Uchiwa and Kusanagi sword would be his primary weapons for a long time. As for Flying Thunder God Kunai, he was like before, using it for the teleportation location and cleaning up the miscellaneous mob. Roger originally planned to go to Virginia to see Dr. Betty Ross, the girlfriend of Dr. Banner. However, Tony's high efficiency had disrupted his plan, so he decided to let his only subordinate go to Culver University in his place. After Shadow Clone was separated, Roger took Kusanagi sword and Thunder fan back home, intending to cultivate Chidori Katana, who had been in his heart for a long time. With the self-taught Chidori Current's experience, self-taught Chidori Katana was not very difficult for him. After Roger returned home, Shadow Clone directly came to him through Flying Thunder God's formula on the Punisher and told the Punisher about the plan for him. The Punisher had no objection to Roger's arrangement. Although it was only a few hours ago that Roger allowed him to take a good rest. However, with his Edo Tensei, he would never feel tired, so the word rest meant nothing to him. A few minutes later, Shadow Clone left New York with the Punisher, who was ready and directly sent to Culver University in Virginia. After completing the task of sending people away, Shadow Clone took the initiative to release the ninjutsu, turned into a cloud of smoke, and disappeared in front of the Punisher. 3 days passed by in a flash. In these 3 days, Roger successfully learned Chidori Katana, allowing him to grasp this long-awaited ninjutsu. At the same time, he consumed 20 ninja coins and exchanged summoning technique from the system. The summoning technique was divided into blood summoning and non-blood summoning. Blood summoning required the user to form a blood contract with the spirit creature, and then when needed, he could use the spirit creature to summon. The crux of blood summoning was the blood contract, so when it was used, it had to use blood as a medium. This was also why, when summoning a spirit beast, it usually needed to bite its finger. Of course, not biting the finger or using the blood of other places was also fine. This was purely a personal choice. Compared to the non-blood summoning, blood summoning was much more straightforward. The blood summoning was usually used to summon ninja tools or other items. For example, the first Hokage's Rashomon and other daily ninja tools. While exchanging for summoning technique, the system conveniently gave Roger a blood contract scroll. After exchanging for summoning technique, Roger went to Tony's mansion. He threw his own Mark III and the others into the ninja scroll he had prepared earlier. Then he threw Kusanagi sword, Gunbei Uchiwa, Flying Thunder God technique Kunai, and the swords in his hand. Although Kusanagi sword and Gunbei Uchiwa looked cool, they would still look ridiculous if carried around in bright daylight. So if not necessary, he would not bring Kusanagi sword and Gunbei Uchiwa with him. After returning to the office, Erika handed a box to Roger. Inside the box was a white mask and a black robe. 3 days ago, Roger took time to come back to the office and arranged for Erica to customize a mask and robe. The appearance of the mask was basically the same as the one that Obito wore. The only difference was that the megatama at the top of the mask was complete and did not reveal a hole. And that black robe was precisely the same as the black cloud robe of the Akatsuki organization. White Toby mask, black cloud robe, plus Kusanagi sword and thunder fan. This was the battle image that Roger created for himself in the future. After throwing the white mask and black cloud robe into the psychic scroll, his figure disappeared from the affairs office and came to where Dr. Ross was. At this time, Culver University did not have a comm scene that a normal university should have. In the campus, police and soldiers could be seen everywhere. Roger was not surprised by this strange scene in front of him. Because all of this was arranged by him. 3 days ago, he had arranged a new task for the Punisher through Shadow Clone. Kidnapping Betty Ross, blowing up all the laboratories Banner had used and doing it as obvious as possible. The Punisher used the high-profile method he understood to kidnap Dr. Ross, who was in class, in front of everyone, and then installed a time bomb in the laboratory that Banner had used. Not only that, after the kidnapping and explosion incident, he also contacted the local news media as well as several large media in the country. He arrogantly provoked the local police and the FBI. Then, the scene in front of him happened. The local police and the FBI agents rushed to Culver University immediately. As for the US soldiers that appeared on the campus, they were sent by General Ross. Initially, this kind of thing was unsuitable for the military to intervene. Even if Dr. Ross was the daughter of General Ross, it was not convenient for him to send people over. However, the Punisher gave General Ross an excellent reason to intervene. On the second day, after provoking the local police and the FBI, the Punisher contacted the media again and gave them a video recording. In the video, Dr. Ross looked normal. She was neither panicked nor haggard. In a very calm tone, she talked about the days when she and Banner conducted research together. The research that Dr. Ross was talking about was the physical strength enhancement experiment that General Ross was secretly carrying out. Roger specially ordered this video. He wanted to use this video to fish out Bruce Banner. Chapter 66, Dr. Ross. Since even S.H.I.E.L.D. and the military could not find Banner, a physics doctor who was full of hidden talent, Roger naturally would not waste his time on finding Banner. Since I can't find you, I'll let you take the initiative to appear, Roger murmurs. After the accident, although Banner had not contacted Dr. Ross once, Roger was sure Banner had always been concerned about Dr. Ross' safety. The reason why he didn't show up was to protect Dr. Ross. Therefore, Roger planned this kidnapping case and let the Punisher make this matter big. Only in this way could Banner, who was hidden somewhere, know this news and make him appear obediently. His beloved girlfriend was kidnapped, and he also had the strength to save his girlfriend. In such a situation, Roger was not afraid that Banner would not appear. As for whether Banner would hold a grudge because of this, he did not care. The one who kidnapped Dr. Ross was the Punisher. What does it have to do with me? Just as he was strolling around Culver University with a relaxed expression, he saw two familiar figures. One was Coulson, whose hairline was moving further backward, and the other was the Black Widow Natasha, who was wearing casual clothes. S.H.I.E.L.D. came, and the place was getting more and more lively. The police, the FBI, and the military had all appeared, so it was not strange to have another S.H.I.E.L.D. When Roger saw Coulson and Natasha, they also saw Roger, and then they took the initiative to come over. You were the one who arranged everything here, right? Natasha took the initiative to speak as soon as she arrived. Others might not know the reason, but Natasha could tell at a glance that it was Roger's doing. One look at the kidnapping case of Dr. Ross, it was obvious that it was to lure out the hidden Bruce Banner. Although you are S.H.I.E.L.D.'s senior agent, you can't accuse others of being guilty. When the kidnapping happened, I was still in New York, and many people saw the kidnapper. The kidnapper looked nothing like me. Natasha did not believe a word of Roger's explanation. Although Roger's actions seemed excessive, S.H.I.E.L.D. was not a moral organization either. To achieve their goal, S.H.I.E.L.D. had done many shameful things. No matter what, I hope Dr. Ross can come back safely in the end. Natasha hinted that Roger should not go too far. Even if Natasha did not say it, Roger would not hurt Dr. Ross. From beginning to end, he only had one goal, to lure Banner out and then hand him over to S.H.I.E.L.D. As for what would happen to Banner after handing him over to S.H.I.E.L.D., it was no longer within his scope of consideration. However, he believed the Hulk, this lively little fellow, would protect Banner's life. After chatting for a while, Roger left Culver University and used Flying Thunder God technique to come to the Punisher's side. After kidnapping Ross, the Punisher did not immediately leave the city with him. Instead, he brought her back to a neighborhood near her house. Before the kidnapping began, the Punisher had made sufficient preparations. For example, the weapons and transportation tools needed for the operation, the hidden locations required after the process, and so on. He was fully prepared. His current location was less than a kilometer away from Ross' home. Moreover, he had investigated that the owner of this family had just gone on vacation some time ago so that no one would appear here for a while. After bringing Dr. Ross here, other than restricting Dr. Ross from leaving this place and contacting the outside world, he did not restrict Dr. Ross in any way. He even ordered her pizzas several times from the pizza shop that Dr. Ross liked. From his identity as a kidnapper, he was one of the top 10 kidnappers of the year with the best service for the kidnapping target. When Roger arrived, the Punisher took the initiative to stand up, left the living room, and returned to her room. Dr. Ross was initially watching the latest news reports. The sudden appearance of Roger immediately frightened her. However, she quickly calmed down and looked at Roger with a calm face. "Are you the person who instructed Frank to kidnap me?" In the past 3 days, Dr. Ross and the Punisher got along quite well, so she knew the Punisher's name and why the Punisher looked completely different from ordinary people. However, the Punisher was very clear about what could and could not be said. It was about Roger's identity and the real purpose of this mission. "That's right, I was the one who let Frank kidnap you." After saying that, Roger sat opposite Dr. Ross and picked up a pizza simultaneously. After a few bites, he continued, "Although it is very old-fashioned, I think it is necessary to say something. I have no ill intentions towards you. I want your boyfriend Banner to appear on his initiative so you don't have to worry about your safety. As long as Banner appears, you can go back." It had to be said that the pizza in this shop was delicious. No wonder Betty Ross and Bruce Banner liked it. Banner? Banner, he. When the accident happened, Dr. Ross was injured and fainted. Since that day, she had never seen Banner again, nor had she received any information about him. He should still be alive and well. But I don't know where he is. At this time, Banner had just finished a day of work. When he returned to his residence, he prepared an ordinary dinner. Then he picked up a thick Portuguese dictionary and planned to solve his dinner while learning the official Portuguese language on Brazil's side. Just as he turned on the TV and was about to learn Portuguese from the TV festival, he accidentally saw a piece of news on the other station. Although he still did not understand Portuguese and the image on the TV was not particularly clear, he still recognized the person on the TV at a glance. This was an international channel. Occasionally, there would be some foreign news, such as American news. He recognized the person in the news, the woman who still retained the photo even when he was fleeing. After seeing this, he immediately turned on his computer and began to search for relevant news information. When he found the relevant news reports, the bracelet in his hand issued an ear-piercing alarm. His heartbeat rate began to rise rapidly, and his breathing increasingly rapid. Just as the blood vessels on his neck bulged and revealed a trace of abnormal green, he finally reacted. He quickly breathed, and his heartbeat began to calm down gradually. When his heartbeat returned to normal, he turned off the computer and began to pack his luggage. After fleeing for more than a year, he decided to return to the United States. Chapter 67, The Hulk Appear. How could he still be considered a man if he couldn't even protect the woman he loved? Although Banner is a man of culture, he is definitely not a man of culture from the heart. Previously, he had been fleeing because he wanted to research a way to turn himself back into an average person and not because he was afraid of General Ross. After tidying up his items, Banner pushed open the door and left without looking back. After chatting with Dr. Ross, Roger used Flying Thunder God technique to return to his home in New York. He opened the PS4 again and continued his blacksmithing game. Before leaving, he left a Shadow clone for the Punisher and asked Shadow clone to help the Punisher to prevent them from being found by the FBI or S.H.I.E.L.D. 4 days passed by in a flash. When Roger finally cleared this beloved and hateful blacksmithing game, he received a feedback message from Shadow clone. After receiving the feedback message, he did not hesitate to put on the Black Cloud robe, the Megatama mask, the Kusanagi sword, and Gunbei Uchiwa. Then, he used Flying Thunder God technique and teleported to Culver University in Virginia. When he came here, the first thing he saw was the angry Hulk with green skin. After 4 days of running, Banner finally returned to this place that was once so familiar, but as soon as he appeared, a heavily armed army sprang up inside the school and surrounded him. General Ross specially arranged this army. There was only one goal for them, to capture Banner. Under the command of General Ross, the cornered Banner could only transform into the Hulk and engage in a head-on battle with these fully armed soldiers. Then, the massacre happened. Although General Ross had made sufficient preparations and an exceptional team with rich experience. However, all his preparations seemed meaningless under the massive gap in strength. If not for that shield who suddenly intervened in the battle, the Hulk would have already run off to who knows where. Even so, the Hulk still displayed an invincible and tyrannical strength, causing S.H.I.E.L.D.'s special forces to be continuously defeated. The current Culver University was more like a battlefield than a university, a battlefield where a human army fought against inhuman monsters. After arriving here, Roger first analyzed his surroundings before slowly walking towards the Hulk, who was not far away. The Hulk was like a beast attacking S.H.I.E.L.D.'s special squad. When he saw Roger, wearing a bright black cloud robe and holding a gunbei uchiwa, walking towards him, he changed his target. General Ross was the first person to discover Roger because he was just near Flying Thunder God's formula. Looking at Roger, who was dressed strangely and suddenly appeared like a ghost, General Ross' first reaction was that this person was the Hulk's helper. However, he quickly overruled this idea because he saw an eager fighting spirit in Roger. General Ross, who had been in the army for decades, knew what this battle intent meant. So he silently put away the weapon in his hand and watched Roger walk toward the Hulk. It only took a blink of an eye for the Hulk, who was running at full speed. When the Hulk rushed in front of Roger like an angry beast and punched him with all his strength, Roger raised the large fan in front of him. The Hulk's fist slammed into the gunbei uchiwa in Roger's hand. When everyone thought Roger would be sent flying by a single punch from the Hulk, they saw a completely unexpected scene. Roger, who was holding the gunbei uchiwa, was not sent flying. The thunder fan in his hand did not shatter, and there was no significant impact. The Hulk's punch was like hitting cotton and did not have any effect. Only Roger himself knew that the Hulk's punch still had some effect. Gunbei uchiwa did not fail to live up to his expectations. It blocked the Hulk's punch without any injuries, but the huge force still made him take a few steps back. If he had not used his chakra in time to increase his strength, the Hulk's punch would have pushed him 5 or 6 meters away. Looking at this somewhat illogical scene in front of him, Ross and S.H.I.E.L.D.'s agents revealed shocked expressions. They might not know how powerful the Hulk was, but they were sure that the Hulk's strength was not something a human could withstand. The Hulk was an existence that could even throw a military Hummer around like a toy ball. Even if his punch did not use his full strength, it was enough to destroy anything in front of him. Although they found it hard to believe, they had to admit that this strange fellow wearing a white mask and black robe had blocked the Hulk's punch. If my subordinates also have this kind of strength, then... Thinking of this, the captain of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Special Forces and General Ross could not help but look at each other and regard Roger as one of the other side's people. After confirming that the thunder fan could block the Hulk's punch, Roger, under the mask, revealed a satisfied smile. After finding that his fist did not cause any damage to Roger, the Hulk threw a few more punches at Roger, trying to knock down the guy in strange clothes in front of him. Although the Hulk's attack speed was fast, Roger's reaction speed was faster. Gunbei uchiwa blocked every punch that the Hulk threw. While blocking the Hulk's attack, Roger also took the time to throw a few temporary paralysis techniques at the Hulk. Just like how the Hulk's attacks did not release the power they should have, the temporary paralysis technique that Roger threw out was also ineffective without exception. To be precise, it was not ineffective. The Hulk's physical fitness was too abnormal, causing the temporary paralysis technique's effect to be infinitely close to zero. In this case, it was impossible to make up for the quality with quantity. After realizing that the temporary paralysis technique had no effect at all, Roger threw another Bringer of Darkness technique at the Hulk without any hesitation, trying to deprive the Hulk of his vision. Just like the temporary paralysis technique, Bringer of Darkness technique had no effect. When physical fitness was strengthened to a certain extent, it was enough to offset the most damaging effects. After blocking the Hulk's punches, Roger used body flickering technique to increase the distance between them, then put away the thunder fan and pulled out Kusanagi sword. Since auxiliary ninjutsu couldn't work, then directly use offensive ninjutsu. With a thought, a visible light blue lightning appeared on Kusanagi sword. Lightning release Chidori Katana. Chapter 68, Kusanagi sword, Chidori Katana. Light blue lightning wrapped around Kusanagi sword like a lightning snake, and at the same time, 1,000 bird-like chirps sounded. The chirping made the Hulk, who was already in a state of anger, even more irritated. Looking at the constantly chirping sword of Kusanagi in Roger's hand, the Hulk let out a non-human roar and then ran toward him. Although speed was not the Hulk's strong suit, it still depended on what it was compared to. Compared to his own strength and physique, his speed was not fast. But to others, the Hulk, who was running wildly, was like a heavy truck driving on an F1 race car machine. In the blink of an eye, the Hulk arrived in front of Roger and smashed his huge right fist at Roger. Regarding strength and physique, Roger was far inferior to the Hulk. But if we are comparing their speed, Roger was never afraid of anyone. Just when the Hulk's right fist was about to hit him, his eyes suddenly changed from black to blood red. Sharingan. After opening the Sharingan, he moved. Almost as if teleporting, Roger's figure instantly disappeared in front of the Hulk. At the same time, a feeling of paralysis came from the Hulk's right arm. This feeling of paralysis that could completely paralyze an ordinary person only lasted for a short 0.0 seconds before it completely disappeared, as if it had never appeared before. Then, after the numbness disappeared, the Hulk still felt a trace of pain from his right arm. At this time, although the Hulk was not very rational, his biological instinct still made him turn to look at his right arm. On his right arm, which was thicker than the waist of an adult man, there was a wound that was more than 10 centimeters long. Although this wound was more than 10 centimeters long, it was not deep and did not have an apparent visual on the Hulk's right arm. The person who left this scar on the Hulk was none other than Roger, who had just disappeared from his sight. Although the real version of the Kusanagi sword in Roger's hand was not exchanged from the system, its sharpness was not much better than the real sword of Kusanagi. When he self-taught Chidori Katana, he tested the sharpness of the Kusanagi sword so that he could compare it with the real Kusanagi sword later on. Even without Chidori Katana, the sword of Kusanagi could easily cut off a 3 cm diameter metal stick in his hand without any damage. And after adding Chidori Katana, the sharpness of the Kusanagi sword was enhanced. Not to mention cutting steel, even Flying Thunder God technique Kunao, which was entirely made of vibranium, could not block the combination of Chidori Katana and sword of Kusanagi. It only took 2 hits for the Flying Thunder God technique Kunao, which was made of vibranium, to be completely cut into 2 pieces. However, even with such an incredible sharpness, when facing the Hulk, Kusanagi sword imbued with Chidori Katana was still a little powerless. In that slash just now, Roger did not hold back at all. However, the result was not as good as he had imagined. Whether it was the length or depth of the wound, the sword did not cause any noticeable damage to the Hulk. It was 10 centimeters long and 2 or 3 centimeters deep. This kind of wound might be a severe injury for ordinary people. But for the Hulk, who was about 3 to 4 meters tall and extremely strong, this injury was slightly more severe than scratched skin. Roger was very dissatisfied with his attack, while General Ross and the others, who were observing them with binoculars in the distance, could not help but swallow their saliva. They used enough weapons and equipment to fight a city but could not leave any apparent wounds on the Hulk. But now, they saw someone wounded the Hulk. Although they did not see clearly how Roger launched the attack. However, they were 100% sure that the wound on the Hulk's right arm was caused by the katana in Roger's hand that was wrapped in electricity and constantly making chirping sounds. What was wrong with this world? The damage of hot weapons could not even compare to cold weapons. Was this still the world that emphasized the rules of science? Could this world still be fine? Just as General Ross and the others looked at Roger and the Hulk in disbelief, Blonsky, who was beside General Ross, had a powerful desire in his eyes. This kind of power, this form, was simply the perfect creature in this world. If not for the fact that there would be serious life-threatening danger near the Hulk, Blonsky wanted to personally touch the Hulk's body and feel the power contained under that perfect body. When General Ross and the others were shocked, Roger launched another attack on the Hulk. Although Kusanagi sword imbued with Chidori Katana could not cause significant damage to the Hulk, it was not weak to the point where it could not harm the Hulk at all. Even if he could only cut out a 10-centimeter wound at a time, as long as he persisted, he would eventually reach the point where Hulk's muscles and bones would be injured. After discovering that he was injured, the already angry Hulk became even more furious, smashing his fists toward Roger recklessly. The Hulk's attack seemed to be very powerful, but this kind of attack was full of predictable. Even if Roger closed his eyes, he could still dodge it. However, at this time, he did not directly leave the range of the Hulk's attack. Instead, he slightly exerted his legs and now jumped in front of the Hulk. The Hulk did not know why Roger did this, but when he saw Roger jump in front of him, a cruel smile appeared on his green face. I will skin this guy alive. This was Hulk's idea. If it were Banner, even if Roger injured his right arm, he would not have such a cruel idea. Banner and the Hulk were like two sides of a coin to some extent. The Hulk was impulsive and easily angry, while Banner was calm and collected. The Hulk was good at solving problems with force, while Banner was good at solving problems with wisdom. Just as the Hulk was about to use the cruelest method to kill this guy in front of him who had made him feel an inexplicable disgust ever since he appeared, he saw a pair of blood-red eyes with 3 tomo. Genjutsu, Sharingan. Roger originally had no intention of using the Genjutsu Sharingan. Still, the Hulk's ability to resist beatings was far beyond his expectations, so he had no choice but to use the backup plan of the Genjutsu Sharingan. Just a moment ago, he displayed Yin Release Bringer of Darkness technique to the Hulk. Still, the Hulk relied on his unimaginably powerful body to directly ignore Bringer of Darkness technique's influence. Although Bringer of Darkness technique did not affect the Hulk, this did not mean that the Hulk could completely ignore Yin Release's influence. Moreover, what Roger displayed this time was not an ordinary Yin Release but Yin Release, which originated from the Sharingan. Anger was the source of the Hulk's strength, but anger could similarly become a heavy burden to crush the Hulk. Chapter 69, Death Valley. Although he had the Sharingan, Roger rarely used it in battle. Compared to Genjutsu, he preferred to be better at ninjutsu. The last time he used Genjutsu Sharingan was when fighting against Mr. Negative. That time, it was the first time he used the ability of the Sharingan in battle. Although it was the first time, the ability of the Sharingan's Genjutsu still surprised him. Through the hypnotic ability of the Sharingan, he pulled Mr. Negative into a fictitious memory. Then, without Mr. Negative noticing, he quickly killed this enemy who could release negative energy. Although Mr. Negative was also a superhuman, he was incomparable to the Hulk. Therefore, Roger did not intend to use the same tactics on the Hulk. In the face of a typical berserker like the Hulk, a berserker who grew increasingly furious, he decided to do the opposite, making the already enraged Hulk even more furious. After seeing Roger's pair of blood-red eyes, the incomparably manic Hulk suddenly quieted down as if he had seen a magical thing that could completely calm him down. However, this calmness lasted only 1 to 2 seconds before it shattered with a bang. The Hulk once again became agitated, and his pair of green eyes revealed a strange red color that was like blood. How could he make a person feel true despair? The method was straightforward. First, he would give him hope. When he thought he was about to achieve hope, he would personally break his hope and let him fall directly to the bottom of despair from the edge of attaining hope. This way, he felt the ultimate despair of falling from heaven to hell. The same method could also make a person feel extreme anger. This was what Roger was doing right now. While hypnotizing the Hulk, he tried to calm the Hulk down directly so that Banner could regain control of his body. Unfortunately, the Hulk was highly resistant to being calmed down. Therefore, Roger followed the original plan, making the initially angry Hulk even angrier. As the Hulk became even more furious, the Hulk also became stronger. Taking advantage of the fact that the Hulk had yet to launch an attack, Roger took advantage of the opportunity to leave a Flying Thunder God's formula on his body. When he finished all this, Hulk's anger erupted like a volcano. The Hulk let out a roar that was completely unlike a human's, and then he waved his arms like an angry gorilla. At this time, the Hulk had utterly lost his mind. Right now, all he had left was pure attack instinct and boundless rage that filled his entire mind. Even General Ross and the others who were more than 100 meters away reacted immediately after seeing the Hulk's current appearance. The Hulk had gone completely crazy. Without the slightest hesitation, after seeing that the Hulk had completely lost his mind, General Ross decisively gave the order to retreat. In any case, the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent with the strange mask was still there. Even if they retreated, it would not have any effect. Just like General Ross, the captain of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s Special Forces also gave the order to retreat as soon as he saw that the Hulk goes completely angry. Why did you retreat as well? When the captain of Ross Special Forces and S.H.I.E.L.D.'s special troops saw that the other side's people were retreating quickly, the same doubt appeared in their minds. They still thought that Roger was a soldier from the other side. After leaving Flying Thunder God's formula behind on the Hulk's body, Roger continuously cast several body flickering techniques, instantly pulling away the distance between him and the Hulk. At this time, although the Hulk was entirely dominated by anger, his instinct constantly reminded him that Roger was the most dangerous and most needed to be solved. almost at the moment when Roger's figure just became clear. The Hulk ran towards him at speed far faster than before. If the Hulk's previous sprinting speed was the speed of an F1 racing car, then his current sprinting speed was the extreme speed of the F-22 Raptor fighter jet. Although the Hulk displayed a speed far exceeding his previous pace, when he arrived in front of Roger, Roger again disappeared from his line of sight. Flying Thunder God Technique. This time, Roger was not using body flickering technique but Flying Thunder God technique. The reason why he had left Flying Thunder God's formula on the Hulk was for this moment. Through Flying Thunder God technique, he teleported to the back of the Hulk. The position of teleportation was just above the back of the Hulk's head. When he completed the teleportation, a raised nan with a diameter of about 1 meter appeared in his right hand. Without any hesitation, he directly hit the raised nan in his right hand on the Hulk's head. Boom! A loud explosion like an intercontinental missile sounded, and at the same time, it set off a blast of air like a level 12 hurricane. The soldiers of the United States and SHIELD agents who were retreating were attracted by the loud sound and involuntarily turned to look at where the sound came from. Then, they saw an unbelievable scene. In front of them, the Hulk, who was like a god of war, was heavily knocked down to the ground at this time. At the Hulk's falling position, the surrounding dozens of meters of ground had huge cracks like spider webs. After knocking the Hulk down, Roger once again arrived in front of the Hulk. Then, under the watchful eyes of everyone, he directly took the Hulk away. Although General Ross and the others had witnessed this scene with their own eyes, they had no idea what was happening. They only saw Roger place his right hand on the Hulk, and then the two of them strangely disappeared into thin air. After knocking the Hulk down for a short while, Roger brought the Hulk to the Death Valley, which was like an alien environment. Although Death Valley was a famous geographical location in the United States, there would not be any people here all year round. Even the tourists who specially came to visit would at most only see the edge of Death Valley. The only people who could genuinely go deep into the center of the Death Valley, apart from the researchers who studied the environment of the Death Valley, were those exceptional individuals who needed to stay away from human society. This was the second time that Roger had come here. The last time he had come here was more than 2 years ago. That time, he had accepted a commission of $10,000. It took him nearly a week to travel through several states before finding the target he was looking for here. The target was a middle-aged man who looked extremely simple and honest, but this man was a serial killer who had killed more than 10 young women. The ones who entrusted him were the parents of one of the victims. Roger did not know where the couple had heard the news from, so he specially came to his office. Then, they used the remaining $10,000 in their account as a commission fee and entrusted him with it. The commission passed the system's judgment, so he accepted the commission. After killing the psycho killer who had been committing crimes for 10 years here, he followed the agreement and brought the head of this pervert back to the couple. Chapter 70, Mission Accomplished. After coming here again, Roger couldn't help but recall the scene at that time. At that time, he was still a young man full of youth. After lying on the ground for a few seconds, the Hulk, who Ray's Nan knocked down, shook his head and stood up in a daze. Until now, the Hulk did not know what had just happened. To knock down the Hulk, who had an incredible constitution, Roger deliberately used Big Ball Ray's Nan, who he had not completely mastered. Although Big Ball Ray's Nan looked only a little bigger than Ray's Nan, the difficulty of controlling it rose sharply, and the requirements for chakra volume were several times higher. The Hulk was the first person to bear Big Ball Raisingan's power and the only one who has felt its power. The Hulk, who stood up again, shook his head first, and after getting rid of the dizzy feeling, he looked at his surroundings. Looking at the unfamiliar surroundings, the Hulk, even though he was dominated by anger, revealed a puzzled expression. Then, he saw Roger wearing a white the Megatama mask. When he saw Roger, the Hulk's heart immediately surged with uncontrollable boundless anger. Without any hesitation, the Hulk immediately attacked Roger. When the Hulk's right fist, which was even bigger than an ordinary person's head, swung towards Roger, Roger's right hand once again formed a Ray's Nan. Unlike Big Ball Ray's Nan just now, what he condensed at this time was an ordinary Ray's Nan, but the size was similar to the Hulk's fist. Boom! When the Hulk's right fist collided with Ray's Nan in Roger's hand, a violent chakra storm erupted. The Hulk's right fist smashed Ray's Nan in Roger's hand, but his right fist also withstood Raisingan's full power. An unimaginably powerful force enveloped the Hulk's entire right arm, constantly twisting and tearing apart his right arm. If it were an ordinary person, their entire body would be twisted and torn apart when this force enveloped them. Even if it was a steel body, it would be unable to contend against this powerful force. However, the Hulk relied on his body, which was strong to the point of cheating, to resist Rasengan's might forcefully. When the Hulk shattered Rasengan, Roger decisively used body flickering technique to increase the distance between him and the Hulk and, simultaneously, avoid being enveloped by the chakra storm. Although the Hulk endured all of Rasengan's might, Rasengan did not cause too much damage to him, only causing his right arm to feel a pain he had never experienced before. Roger was not surprised by this result. If the Hulk were so easy to be knocked down, General Ross would have grabbed the Hulk long ago. Looking at the Hulk's 3-meter-tall giant body, a crazy idea suddenly came to Roger's mind. For knocking down the Hulk, Rasengan couldn't do it by itself. But if the one who hit the Hulk was not Rasengan but Big Ball Rasengan, the result would be very different. After mastering Rasengan, Roger had the plan of self-taught himself the Big Ball Rasengan, and he quietly studied for a while. This was also the reason why he was able to use Big Ball Rasengan previously. However, he had not wholly grasped Big Ball Rasengan, this ninjutsu. Whether or not he could successfully use it still depended on his luck at that time. After seriously thinking for a second or two, he decided. He wanted to complete Big Ball Rasengan's studies here. Using the pressure brought about by the Hulk's attack at any time, he forced himself to unleash even more potential. Although this decision seemed very rash, he decided to be reckless once. In the next few hours, in the rare central area of the Death Valley, the sound of missiles exploding rang out one after another. Roger could no longer remember how many Rasengan he had smashed into the Hulk. The only thing he could be sure of now was that the chakra volume in his body was not even used by 1/10. Under the pressure of being hit by the Hulk at any time, he released even more potential as he wished. In just a few hours, he had completed all Big Ball Rasengan's studies and completely mastered this strengthened version of Rasengan. Although Roger was only a few meters away from the Hulk had no intention of attacking him. To be precise, he did not have the strength remains to attack. At this time, the Hulk was powerlessly lying on the ground. His IQ was not high, and he was thinking about 3 non-philosophical questions. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? After being attacked by Roger's Big Ball Rasengan again and again, he wanted to resist but could not defend against it. He tried to run away, but could not get rid of Roger. For the Hulk, the past few hours were the most miserable time in his life. The Hulk's consciousness began to calm down gradually, and Banner's consciousness began to gain the upper hand. In the next minute or so, Roger witnessed the process of the Hulk turning from a green giant to an ordinary person. When the Hulk returned to Banner, he subconsciously glanced at Banner's pant. The quality of these pants was really extraordinary. Banner, who had just regained consciousness, had yet to figure out what had happened when Roger arrived behind him like a ghost. Then, he struck his neck with a knife. Banner lost consciousness once again and fell forward uncontrollably. After knocking Banner unconscious, Roger grabbed Banner's shoulder and used Flying Thunder God technique to leave the Death Valley. After they left, the Death Valley returned to peace. Roger did not bring Banner back to Culver University. Instead, he brought the unconscious Banner back to his office. After returning to the office, he first called Natasha and took off the 3 Megatama mask, Akatsuki's robe, Kusanagi sword, Gunbei Uchiwa, and other equipment. Not long after, Natasha brought a team of fully armed SHIELD special forces to the office. Natasha was not surprised that Roger was still at Culver University a few hours ago, but now he had returned to New York. Although SHIELD did not know how many extraordinary abilities Roger had grasped, they were still clear about the abilities that Roger often used. Teleportation, spitting fire, creating clones that were precisely the same as the main body and had offensive abilities, strangely restricting the movements of others. These were the 4 abilities that SHIELD currently knew of Roger. According to the commission, you can take him away now. Natasha did not ask Roger how he did it. She directly arranged for the special forces to take away the unconscious Banner and put handcuffs and anklets on Banner. Roger wanted to remind them, but he finally gave up on this plan. SHIELD was very clear about Banner's ability. Otherwise, he would not have entrusted him with the commission. When Natasha and the others left the office, Roger opened the attribute panel that only he could see. It was not much different from the last time he opened it, but with the addition of summoning technique, Chidori Katana, and Big Ball Rasengan, the number of available ninja coins also became 124. According to his previous plan, he planned to save 300 or 500 ninja coins and exchange them for Mangekyo Sharingan or would release ninjutsu from the system. But after this commission, he decided to adjust his exchange plan. Mangekyo Sharingan and wood release in the column were indeed powerful, but these were not the most needed ninjutsu for the current him. Chapter 71, Sage Mode Transplantation. When he was fighting with the Hulk, Roger sighed over and over again at the Hulk's body, which was cheat level strong. At the same time, he also felt that his current body was too weak. He could be considered to have a strong physique that was not human compared to ordinary people. However, compared to monsters with a super physique, he was as weak as a baby. Without his extraordinary speed, he would not have been able to fight with a character like the Hulk, a tank, and a warrior. Even if there was no way to have a super physique like the Hulk or Thor, he still needed to improve his physique so that his body strength could keep up with his speed and chakra volume, which was improving day by day. On the system's exchange page, there were many ways to strengthen his physique. However, not many were suitable for his combat style, and even less could be afforded. Sage Mode. He really wants the vitality and physical ability of the six-path Sage Mode of Hagoromo Otsutsuki. If he had enough ninja coins, Roger wouldn't mind exchanging for this Sage Mode. However, he only had 124 ninja coins now, so he could only exchange for the miniature version of the Sage Mode in the form of the Sage Mode of the Senju clan. Sage Mode of the Senju clan only costs 100 ninja coins. The upgrade version of the Sage Mode of the Senju clan is called the Sage Mode of the Hashirama Senju. Sage Mode of Hashirama Senju required 500 ninja coins. However, this is not the peak of Sage Mode arts. On Sage Mode, there were two upgraded versions, one is Ashura Sage Mode, and the other is Six-Path Sage Mode. Sage Mode of the Senju clan, Sage Mode of Hashirama Senju, Ashura Sage Mode, and Six-Path Sage Mode. This was the upgrade path for the Sage Mode of the Senju clan. Besides the upgrade route of the Sage Mode of the Senju clan, there was also the upgrade route of the Sage Mode of the Uzumaki clan. The only difference was that the first two content of the Sage Mode of the Uzumaki clan was changed to the Sage Mode of Uzumaki clan and Sage Mode of Uzumaki Naruto, respectively. Just as Roger was about to exchange for the Sage Mode of the Senju clan directly, he sent out the exchange icon that he had never seen before next to the Sage Mode of the Senju clan. Sage Mode Transplantation. Roger was very sure that whenever he browsed for the Sage Mode, this icon has never appeared before. After opening the icon and looking at the specific introduction, he could not help but frown. This hidden exchange item will not appear in the host's current state under normal conditions. Only when the host is interested in the corresponding exchange target and has enough ninja coins will these hidden exchange items appear. Sage Mode Transplantation. Based on the principle of cell transplantation technology invented by Orochimaru, the new transplantation method has been upgraded and optimized. After a successful transplant, the target's complete physical and part of the transplanted jutsu will be obtained. If the transplant failed, the user chakra capacity would be dropped by half. And now, the transplantation that was offered to Roger is the transplantation for Sage Mode of Hashirama Senju. The exchange price of this transplantation was 100 ninja coins, the same price as the Sage Mode of Hashirama Senju. However, it differed from the regular exchange, which always had a 100% success rate. Sage Mode Transplant Tactic only had a 20% success rate. In other words, if the transplant were successful, it would be equivalent to using 100 ninja coins to exchange for the Sage Mode, which was worth 500 ninja coins. If the transplant failed, it would be a waste of 100 ninja coins. For this question, Roger decided without thinking. Without any hesitation, he said. He directly consumed 100 ninja coins to exchange for the Sage Mode of Hashirama Senju. 100 ninja coins, for the current him, was a considerable sum of money. However, he still decisively made a choice and chose to bet on the 20% chance. If the transplant failed, he would treat it as the Hulk being beaten for nothing. As for chakra volume, this was a small matter. When his number of available ninja coins changed back to 24, a series of seals that he could not understand appeared on the back of his right hand. Before he could take a closer look, the seal written in black ink on the back of his right hand emitted a dark green light. Why was it green again? Just as Roger cursed in his heart, the seal on the back of his right hand began to grow crazily. These seals that emitted dark green light covered his entire body in the blink of an eye. At the same time, he found that the chakra in his body was circulating uncontrollably. Were all the transplantation as scary as this? Just as this thought appeared in his mind, he lost control of his body and came to the strange green planet as if his soul had left his body. To be precise, he came to the outer space of the strange green planet. What appeared in front of him now was a green planet covered entirely in trees. He did not know how giant this green planet was, nor did he know what this green planet meant. The only thing he could be sure of now was that this green planet was like capturing a meteor that flew by chance, using an incomparably overbearing and irresistible method to attract him over forcefully. The scene changed, and he instantly arrived at a forest that was so lush that it didn't make sense. The trees in the forest suddenly came to life, and large and small branches stretched out towards him like tentacles of deep-sea octopuses. In the blink of an eye, he was firmly bound by these branches, and then he completely lost consciousness. Roger felt that he had a very, very long dream. When he opened his eyes again, he found that he was still sitting on the chair in the office. No seal on the back of his right hand emitted a dark green light, and there was nothing strange about the surroundings, as if everything just now was just a dream. He immediately opened the system's attribute page and was stunned. Host, Roger. Job, Ninja. Innate talent, Sealless Jutsu, 7 attribute chakra. Bloodline limit, Sharingan, would release. Physical body, Sage mode, Hashirama Senju. Ninjutsu, body substitution, body flickering technique, temporary paralysis technique, shadow clone, flying thunder god technique, sensing technique, summoning technique, raise nan, big ball raise nan. Wood release, wood dragon art, woodman art. Lightning release, Chidori, Chidori sharp spear, Chidori current, Chidori katana. Fire release, great fire annihilation. Water release, water gun technique. Genjutsu, bringer of darkness technique. Physical arts, chakra enhanced strength. Chakra volume, 99. Spirit item, Frank the Punisher, Edo Earth reincarnation state. Number of available ninja coins, 24. Looking at the newly added Sage mode, would release, would dragon art, would man art, and strange force on his status panel, Roger began to think if the god of fortune stays on his side recently. Chapter 72, Sage mode. Roger was delighted with the result of Sage mode's transplantation. Even if the system had made some adjustments to bloodline limit, would release, and ninjutsu, it would not have impacted his good mood. As long as he got Sage mode, everything else is just a bonus. After calming down his excitement, he carefully browsed through the system's introduction of his new ninjutsu and would release. Bloodline limit would release, developed by the first Hokage Senju Hashirama. It was born from the combination of water and earth attributes, topped with the chakra from the god tree. Would release could use chakra as the source of life, accelerate or control plants' growth, and then use them to attack, defend, and control the enemy. Would release's introduction was similar to what Roger remembered, and there was no particularly obvious change. As for wood human technique and wood dragon technique, they were similar to what he remembered. The only difference was that the ability of the wooden dragon to absorb the opponent's chakra became to absorb the opponent's physical strength and energy. Roger was already used to this minor adjustment like the wood dragon technique. After all, before wood dragon technique, there were 2 examples of it, the sensing technique and Sharingan. After reading the introduction to wood human technique and wood dragon technique, he looked at the chakra enhanced strength. Chakra enhanced strength, through precise control of the chakra, concentrates the chakra in a specific part of the body or the whole body and then instantly bursts out, causing very powerful physical damage. Whether in terms of the introduction or the final result, the chakra enhanced strength was highly similar to the method he used to strengthen a specific part of his body. Roger even suspected that he might have mastered the chakra enhanced strength long ago, but the system had never added this physical skill into the attribute panel. Of course, the greater possibility was that the method he used before was too rough, so rough that the system was unwilling to admit it. To confirm this, he compared his method with the method given by the system and then concluded that it hurt his self-esteem. The system had always been unwilling to admit that he used to strengthen his chakra because his method of use was too crude. Compared to the method of use recognized by the system, his Pui's method of strengthening his chakra could only be considered to have just touched the tip of the iceberg. The reason why he could smoothly use this crude method to increase his strength temporarily was purely because his chakra volume was massive. For a simple example, if he used his method to strengthen, he would need to consume 1 volume of chakra. If he used the form recognized by the system, then he only needed to consume 0.1 volume of chakra to reach the same level of strengthening. Therefore, it was still very beneficial to have more chakra volume. If the technique were not good, then he would use quantity to gather it. Although it was shameful to waste so much chakra on the method, it was sometimes advantageous. After reading the introduction of the Chakra Enhanced Strength, Roger opened Sage Mode's intro. Sage Mode, Hashirama Senju. Inheriting the special physique of the six-path Sage Mode and the energy of Senju Hashirama. This is a technique that can be continuously strengthened through hard training. The system only had one sentence for Sage Mode's explanation and did not contain much information. However, even if the system did not give any explanation, Roger would not be unfamiliar with Sage Mode. Unlike the Rinnegan, Sage Mode was not the kind of existence that could immediately grant powerful strength after possessing it. What Sage Mode bestowed upon the user, the thing that was given is the potential to become stronger constantly, not the ability to become stronger instantly. Therefore, he was not surprised when he saw that Chakra volume was still in level 99. Even the second generation of Sage, like Ashura, who was born with a Sage Mode body, he still required long hard work to obtain the same strength as his brother Indra. Sage Mode was far inferior to Rinnegan in the early stage. But in the later stage, not only could Sage Mode unleash the power that was not inferior to the Rinnegan, he could even surpass the Rinnegan. Although Sage Mode, who had been transplanted from Hashirama, did not immediately upgrade Roger, nor did his body fill with power like Hashirama, he was still confident in the Sage Mode. It just needs hard work. He was not afraid that he needed to cultivate hard to obtain strength, but his limited talent restricted him. The feeling of being trapped by talent, no matter how much effort he put in, still unable to obtain any improvement, was the most despairing. And Sage Mode's existence could help him break through the limitations of his talent, allowing him to smoothly break through to a level that initially did not belong to him. He wants a future with greater possibilities, not just a few ninjutsu and chakras in front of him. After turning off his status panel, he used Flying Thunder God technique to leave the office, preparing to experience wood release and his physical skills personally. In the next week, other than going back and forth from home to the office every day, Roger spent most of his time in the forest outside the outskirts of New York. He went to the office to see if there were any suitable commissions to accept. He went to the forest outside the outskirts of New York to familiarize himself with wood dragon technique and wood human technique, which he had just obtained. Although the wood dragon and the wood man, the two wood release ninjutsu, had obtained because of the bonus from transplanting from Hashirama, the effect he displayed was completely different from what Hashirama himself had displayed. The appearance of the wooden dragon and the wooden man is not different. The size is much smaller, and the power has a fundamental difference. Both of these jutsu also have the color green. Roger felt that his wood release and ninjutsu also indicated turning green. Wood release and ninjutsu's progress was not very optimistic, but after a continuous week of hard work, his chakra volume finally improved again. Chakra volume, level 102. With hard practice every day, his chakra volume increased by 3 levels in a week. 3 levels a week, 12 levels a month, and 156 levels a year. This kind of improvement could make people excited just by thinking about it. Just as he was fantasizing about the beautiful scenery in the future, Dr. Ross, who he had met before, suddenly came into the office. "I want to request a commission. This is the reward for the commission." After entering Roger's office, Dr. Ross directly put a suitcase on the desk and said with a serious face, "Let's talk about the contents of the commission first." Roger replied casually as he glanced at Dr. Ross. He was not surprised that Dr. Ross could find this place. The last time they met, although he did not reveal his identity, he did not disguise himself. Therefore, it was very normal for Dr. Ross to find this place. Chapter 73, Dr. Ross Commission. "I know Banner is now locked up in S.H.I.E.L.D. bases. I also know that you are the one who gave Banner to S.H.I.E.L.D. But I still hope that you can save Banner. He is a good person. He just suffered an experiment accident. He should not be an experiment subject any longer." Dr. Ross obviously came here after a detailed investigation. As for who her source of information was, Roger did not need to guess to know. Apart from General Ross, who was always in charge of capturing Banner, no one else would tell this news to Dr. Ross. Although the relationship between Dr. Ross and General Ross was not very good, they were still father and daughter. "Since you know that I gave Banner to S.H.I.E.L.D., you should understand that dealing with the previous employer is a horrible thing to do for people in my line of work." Although it was not the first time he had to deal with his previous employer, he still had to show the attitude he should have. "Moreover, I don't think your reward can push me." The suitcase brought by Dr. Ross could only hold more than $1 million if it were stuffed to the maximum. For other private detectives, this reward would be abundant. But for Roger, this amount of reward was not only not pleasing, but it also seriously damaged his current market price. His previous employer, S.H.I.E.L.D., had directly taken out $100 million in compensation, and it was the kind that had been paid in advance. I can only take out that much now. If you need more than this, I can only pay you in the future. Although Dr. Ross' income was not bad, it did not mean she could take out a massive sum of millions at any time. No, 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 you misunderstood me. I am not short of money now. What I want is... Before Roger could finish speaking, Dr. Ross suddenly hugged herself with both of her hands and shook her head frantically. No, I can't do this. How dare you make such conditions? What conditions have I made? I haven't even finished speaking. Seeing Dr. Ross' intense rejection at this time, Roger suddenly thought of something. Could it be that she thought? His expression instantly became incomparably ugly. I am a young man from a new era who doesn't even have a girlfriend. How could I cause such a misunderstanding? What exactly is the problem? After silently recalling it, he remembered a commission that was considered generous, but he had never accepted it. The female tycoon who became famous because of the deaths of multiple husbands of her. When he thought of this, his face turned even uglier. After realizing that his reputation was starting to develop in some wrong places, he decided to strictly limit the types of commissions in the future. He would put an end to the inexplicable commissions appearing again. Write the contents of the commission on it. Just write down what you can pay. After saying that, Roger took out the last scroll that had not been used and solemnly placed it in front of Dr. Ross. Looking at the serious face of Roger, Dr. Ross also realized that her actions just now were somewhat inappropriate. Dr. Ross did not speak. She directly picked up a pen and wrote on the scroll. Commission reward, $5 million. Roger pointed to the suitcase and asked in confusion, didn't you say that you can only take out that much money? The words written on the scroll are different from what you said. I can only take out this much now, but as long as you can save Banner, I will give you $5 million. Dr. Ross said firmly and then added silently, Banner has enough money to pay. It was reasonable to use Banner's money to save Banner. It was also reasonable for Roger, who sent Banner to S.H.I.E.L.D., to take a commission to rescue Banner from S.H.I.E.L.D. Reasonable my ass, this is not something a normal person would do. Fortunately, Roger was not a normal person, and Banner was not a normal person, so it was normal for them to do something abnormal. After putting away the commission scroll, Roger glanced at the system's commission page. The commission page was blank, and there was no new commission. Sigh, another waste of ninja coins. Just as Roger was about to reject Dr. Ross, a commission that was different from the client's request appeared on the commission page. Dr. Ross' commission was to rescue Banner from S.H.I.E.L.D. However, the contents of the commission given by the system were to prevent the Hulk from destroying New York and sending the Hulk to Canada. This was Roger's first encounter with a different commission from the system. Moreover, since the system called him the Hulk, per his understanding of the system, this meant that the commission would only be completed if he sent the Hulk to Canada. Stopping the Hulk from destroying New York was not difficult to understand. After all, the Hulk had this kind of strength. However, the request to send the Hulk to Canada was not very normal. It was Hulk, not Banner, who needed to be sent to Canada, which meant he couldn't wait for Hulk to turn back into Banner, as he did before sending him there. On top of that, he was curious about what Canada had done wrong that the system would ask him to send the Hulk there. To a certain extent, the Hulk was equivalent to a human-shaped self-propelled nuclear bomb that could constantly explode. Sending such a guy to Canada, he could imagine what would happen in Canada just thinking about it. Moreover, this kind of commission was not quite the same as the client's request. In the end, how to judge the remuneration side was also a new problem. Although Roger's mind was full of doubts, it was clear that the system had no intention of explaining. I accept your mission, but there is a small problem. You may need to meet Banner in Canada. Since the system had given him a mission, and the commission reward was not low, Roger naturally would not make things difficult for the task. Not just sending the Hulk to Canada, even if it requires sending over Abomination to Canada, too, as long as the system could provide the corresponding commissions and rewards, he would still do it. Okay. Although this result was different from what she had imagined, no matter what, she had saved Banner from S.H.I.E.L.D., so Dr. Ross finally agreed. However, she did not expect that although S.H.I.E.L.D. looked like a United States organization, in reality, S.H.I.E.L.D. had many bases in most parts of the world. It should also have one in Canada. You can now tell me the location of the Who, where Banner is imprisoned. Dr. Ross might not know where S.H.I.E.L.D. imprisoned Hulk, but his father, General Ross, would definitely know. He is in New York right now, in the base of S.H.I.E.L.D. in Queens. Chapter 74, Nick Fury Motherfucker. That's all I know. As for where S.H.I.E.L.D.'s base is in Queens, I don't know. At this point, Dr. Ross' tone became a little depressed. It wasn't that General Ross was unwilling to tell Dr. Ross the specific address, but it was because he didn't know where S.H.I.E.L.D.'s base was. S.H.I.E.L.D. willingness to tell General Ross that Banner was in Queens was already giving this Air Force Lieutenant General a great favor. It doesn't matter. It's enough to know that Banner is still in New York. Roger had already left Flying Thunder God's formula during the previous battle on the Hulk. Therefore, as long as he had a general location of Banner, he could directly sense Flying Thunder God's formula in the area and then instantly teleport through Flying Thunder God technique. After you arrive in Canada, call this number, and I will take Banner there. After saying that, Roger gave Dr. Ross the vibranium of Flying Thunder God technique kunao and, at the same time, gave her a business card with his phone number. Although there was no request for Banner to meet Dr. Ross in the system's entrustment, Roger still intended to satisfy Dr. Ross's wish and let her meet with Banner. When Dr. Ross left the office with Flying Thunder God kunao and the business card, he began to sense the Flying Thunder God's formula in Queens. After identifying the one that belonged to Banner from dozens of Flying Thunder God's formula, Roger used summoning technique to summon the sword of Kusanagi, Gunbei Uchiwa, the mask, and Akatsuki robe. Although he could not hide his true identity, he still devoutly put on his battle attire regardless of whether he changed his clothes. It was not important whether he could hide his identity or not. What was important was that it looked cool. After doing all this, his figure disappeared from the affairs office. When he reappeared, he was already next to Banner. To be precise, he was next to Banner, who was lying on the operating table. This was a room that looked similar to an operating room. Other than the patient lying on the operating table and the 4 fully armed agents standing at the room's door, there was not much difference from the actual operating room. The sudden appearance of Roger immediately attracted everyone's attention. The 4 fully armed agents immediately raised their weapons and aimed at him. However, before the 4 agents could shoot, they saw a pair of blood-red eyes. Then, they stood on the spot as if they had lost their souls. Genjutsu, Sharingan. After the battle with the Hulk, Roger began to slowly like the feeling of using Genjutsu, Sharingan. It could be activated just by looking at the target, and it also has many uses. More importantly, the bystanders had no idea what had happened. In the eyes of the bystanders, Roger only turned to look at the 4 agents. Then, these agents stood there dumbly, not moving at all. After dealing with the 4 S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, Roger came to Banner's side and used the kunao to cut off the binding belt that bound Banner. At the same time, he pulled out the needle on Banner's right arm. Although S.H.I.E.L.D. could not subdue the raging Hulk, they used a very tricky method to make the Hulk unable to transform. As long as Banner kept his heartbeat at a low frequency, they could effectively prevent the Hulk from appearing. Although the Hulk was terrifying, Banner was easy to deal with. However, S.H.I.E.L.D. still had little conscience. He did not dissect Banner directly. Instead, he kept collecting and analyzing the composition of his blood and collecting detailed body data that made people speechless. Just as Roger was about to leave with Banner, who had not completely woken up, a black man wearing a black windbreaker and a blindfold on his left eye rushed over. Beside the black man was Natasha, who has a wine-red hair. This black man was none other than the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury. Motherfucker. Wait. Don't go yet. We can discuss this. After receiving the report from his agent, Nick Fury rushed over with Natasha in an attempt to communicate with Roger. However, Roger ignored Nick Fury. He grabbed Banner's shoulder and disappeared from their sight. It seems that I said it too slowly. He didn't hear it clearly. Nick Fury said calmly and silently, giving up. No, he heard it clearly. Natasha added silently. Roger did not bring Banner back to his office but brought him to the forest where he had practiced wood release before. At this time, because of the influence of medicine, Banner was still in a weak state, and he could not even stand up by himself. After using sensing technique to sense Banner's current physical condition, Roger ignored Banner and left him alone in this rare forest, while he used Flying Thunder God technique to leave. A few minutes later, he returned with a new black Chevrolet pickup, a pile of food, and clothes. After dozens of minutes of rest, the effects of the medicine in Banner's body gradually disappeared, and his physical strength began to recover bit by bit. Don't be in a hurry to transform first. Your girlfriend, Dr. Ross, entrusted me to save you. If you still want to see him, get in the car obediently. When Roger appeared again, Banner's first reaction was to transform into the Hulk. He did not forget that the person in front of him had given him to shield. After hearing Roger's words, Banner thought for a few seconds and then went straight to the side of the car, ready to open the door and get in the car. The passenger seat is mine, and your seat is next to it. After that, Roger opened the door and sat in the passenger seat. Although he didn't know what Roger would do, Banner went to the driver's seat and drove away from the forest. Where are we going? Banner, who was holding the steering wheel, asked. Drive in the direction of Canada. You can use whatever road you want. Roger answered casually. Roger did not actually need to prepare a car for this. He could bring Banner to Canada. When Dr. Ross arrived in Canada, he could directly use Flying Thunder God technique to teleport there. Although this was the most efficient way, he did not intend to do so. It was a bit too wasteful to bring Banner directly to Canada, or rather, it was too much of a waste of the Hulk in his body. Before bringing Banner out of the operation room, he had already thought of how to use the Hulk in Banner's body. Chapter 75, Wood Dragon Technique. What reward did Betty give you to save me from S.H.I.E.L.D.? After a few minutes of silence, Dr. Banner, who was driving, finally spoke. $5 million, but she only paid $1 million down payment. She said that you would pay the remaining $4 million. Just as Roger finished speaking, Dr. Banner suddenly braked and looked at Roger in disbelief. Just because of $5 million, you save me from S.H.I.E.L.D. Although Dr. Banner was not a rich man with a net worth of over $100 million, he knew very well that $5 million for this kind of commission was not a very generous reward. Not to mention the process of saving people, the problem was that this act of saving people was undoubtedly slapping S.H.I.E.L.D.'s face. Banner did not think Roger would offend S.H.I.E.L.D. for a mere $5 million. $5 million is already a lot. Many people might not be able to earn this amount even if they work hard for their entire lives. Roger casually replied to Banner. Just as Banner had guessed, if the reward was only $5 million, he did not have much interest in accepting this mission. The reason why he accepted this mission was that the system had given him a pretty good reward. Mission content: prevent the Hulk from destroying New York and sending him to Canada. Mission status: incomplete. Mission reward: 50 ninja coins. Although the reward for ninja coins was only half the reward from the last commission, considering the difficulty of the commission this time, Roger felt that this price was quite good. It was not particularly difficult to stop the Hulk from destroying New York. If Banner transformed into the Hulk in New York, teleport him away from New York with the Flying Thunder God technique, and the first half of the commission would be completed. As for the latter half, it was still relatively easy. The system did not set a time to send the Hulk over or select a specific location. So as long as he let the Hulk come out before crossing Canada's national border and threw him over, the latter part would be completed. Since you mentioned this question, I want to ask, how do you plan to pay the remaining $4 million? After hearing Roger's question, Banner did not even turn his head and directly said, I have a spare bank account. You can withdraw with the account and password if you have it. After saying that, Banner directly told Roger the account and password and added, let me remind you, if you take this money, Ross and S.H.I.E.L.D. will keep an eye on you. You have to solve this problem by yourself. It's okay, as long as $4 million are in the account. Whether it was General Ross or S.H.I.E.L.D., it was not a serious matter to offend them. After driving for a few hours, Roger suddenly said, stop here. There is food in the container. After eating, let's go to the forest next to it. Banner did not know what Roger wanted to do, but he still stopped at the side according to Roger's instructions and opened the container at the back. After opening the container at the back, Banner was a little stunned. The container was filled with all kinds of high-calorie food, and next to the food were several sets of loose sportswear. Remember to eat until you're full. Roger's voice came out of the car. Half an hour later, Roger and Banner parked the car outside the forest. The two of them walked deeper into the woods. Until now, Banner still did not know what Roger wanted to do. He just silently followed behind Roger. After arriving at the depths of the forest, Roger finally spoke. Let the Hulk come out. Banner suspected that he had heard wrong. He asked puzzledly, you just said to let the Hulk come out. Yes, let the Hulk come out. What was this guy trying to do? Although Banner didn't know what Roger wanted to do, but he felt that this was an opportunity for him. Turning into the Hulk, hitting Roger, and then regaining freedom. One plan after another flashed through Banner's mind. Since this is your request, please don't blame me for the consequences later. Not long after, under Banner's deliberate indulgence, a hint of green emerged on his skin, and his entire body grew larger and stronger at a rate visible to the naked eye. When the Hulk, who was 4 meters tall, appeared again, the Hulk first let out an angry roar like a wild beast, and then his eyes stared fixedly at Roger as if he wanted to swallow him whole. However, before the Hulk could launch an attack, he saw Roger, who was not far away, suddenly clasp his fingers together, forming a hand seal for which he did not know the reason. With sealing techniques talent, Roger did not need to make any hand seals when using ninjutsu. However, to look more fabulous, he still does the hand seal. Wood release wood dragon technique. When Roger finished forming the hand seal, a wooden dragon more than 10 meters long, with a long hooked nose and an entire body of thorns, instantly sprang out from the ground and attacked the Hulk directly. Facing the incoming wooden dragon, the Hulk had no intention of retreating. Instead, he took the initiative to run towards the wooden dragon. It was just a piece of wood. It could be easily broken. The Hulk and the wooden dragon collided in the blink of an eye. Just as the Hulk was about to tear apart the somewhat unsightly wooden dragon, the wooden dragon suddenly wrapped around him tightly. A dragon made of wood can't stop me. The Hulk began to exert strength, trying to break free from the binding of the wooden dragon. But he soon noticed that something was wrong. This is no ordinary wood. With the Hulk's strength, let alone wood, even if iron chains bound him, he could still break free easily. But at this time, not only did he not break free from the wooden dragon that was wrapped around him, but he also found that his physical strength was rapidly decreasing at a terrifying speed. Although the Hulk's wisdom was not comparable to Banner's, he was not stupid. The toughness of the wooden dragon was far beyond the Hulk's expectations. Even more troublesome was that the longer it wrapped around him, the more it drained his physical strength and the less likely he could break free. Several minutes later, under extreme pressure, the Hulk transformed back into Banner. After the Hulk disappeared, Roger freed himself from his control over wood dragon technique. Without continuous input of chakra, this wooden dragon with a long hooked nose and an entire body of thorns also turned back into ordinary wood, losing all its ability. Banner crawled from under the wooden dragon, which had already turned into a wooden sculpture. He lay on the ground powerlessly, as if he had just finished running a marathon. After eating, change into new clothes, and we will leave for Canada. Only now did Banner know why Roger had specially brought a set of clothes and a pile of food there. Several minutes later, Banner, who had returned to the car, did not say a word. He directly started the car and drove towards Canada.